And the goal is really to empower and inform our people on voter education. So ranked choice voting, how many people are familiar with ranked choice voting? Heard of it? You ranked? Okay, good. So we got some familiar folks in the audience. So whatever you learned today, I expect you to share that with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Who got the joke? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So ranked choice voting is going national. So before I kind of get into what's happening here with us in New York City, people thought ranked choice voting in 2021 was going to be a one-time thing, one and done, didn't think it was going to happen again. That's not true. Ranked choice voting is here to stay because it was part of a referendum. Also, in addition to that referendum, just some background, people are moving ranked choice voting forward in states across the country and in municipalities. It's in about 60 jurisdictions so far. So this is why you should actually care to learn more about what RCV is. Anything that affects how we vote is something that we should care about and be aware of, because voting is how we elect our representatives in our government. And of course, it's going to impact how people campaign and the strategies, when we talk about campaigns, that it takes to win an election. So what is ranked choice voting? So as I said earlier, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Voters can rank up to 5 people, candidates of their choosing. So if there's only 3 or 4 people running, you're only going to have 4 rankings. But there might be 10 people running. In the case of us for mayor, candidates for mayor, there's about 10, 11 candidates. So you can only rank up to 5. It is only for our municipal or local elections. So that's mayor, comptroller, public advocate, borough president, and city council members. And it is also for special elections. So you're going to see it in the primary and in special elections, but it will not be used in the general. So that's something that's important to note. A candidate needs to receive 50% plus 1, not 51%, but 50% plus 1 of the vote in order to be determined the winner. And this process actually eliminated runoffs in the city of New York. So this came about because originally, if you were running citywide, mayor, comptroller, or public advocate, you needed 40% of the vote in order to win a race. If you did not get 40% of the vote, the top 2 candidates went to a runoff election 2 weeks later. Now, I don't know if you know the data on primaries in New York City, but turnout is very low. Now imagine turnout is already low for the primary, then you run another election 2 weeks later, turnout even lower. And you know it's not cheap to run an election, it costs millions of dollars. So people said, let's try ranked choice voting to eliminate the need for the runoff. It's almost like an instant runoff in some cases, that's what people call it. And we don't have to spend the money on the election 2 weeks later. Now here, let's see how, let me play this little video. Oh. Why isn't my video working? Hold on a second. I'm gonna come back to the video because I want you all to see the visual of literally how ranked choice voting works. So again, talking about how it's moving across the country in municipalities, different states. California, you see different states here, and where the plus sign is where they pass referendums on ranked choice voting. That's why we're using it in New York City. When we talk about the importance of voting, RCV became law in our charter because it was a ballot referendum in 2019, and 75% of the people who voted for the referendum, not 75% of the people who voted in the election, but those who turned the ballot over and voted in that referendum said they wanted RCV. Most people tell me they didn't even know it was on the ballot. They didn't turn the ballot over. There was at least 6 referendums. So this is how it's moving across the country. People are going state by state, city by city. And just so you know, in New York, it's only in New York City. It's not even throughout the state, but there are movements to move it throughout the state as well. So this is just some information on the playbook. Their organization is called Rank the Vote. They're the ones who are going state by state and moving this along. Again, resolutions, legislation that they're implementing. Even on a congressional level, they've been talking about implementing ranked choice voting. If this passes on a congressional level, that means our federal elections across the country could be RCV. And these are conversations that were happening. These were House Democrats reintroduced it, and this was in 2021 this happened. And again, you see Rep. Kahana, Rep. McGowan, and you see here, Fair Vote, one of the organizations pushing this forward. So this is a conversation we need to be aware of. And then of course here, we have our own, one of our New York congressmen, Richie Torres, in 2021, was also behind one of the bills trying to push it nationally. So how does this work for the voter? Steps for marking the ballot. So this is where you gotta really pay attention, and this is what we gotta share. People tell me they're a little confused, they're unclear, so we're gonna go through step by step here. So this ballot is an example of RCV. So if you look, you can rank up to 5 candidates. Now, if it's 15 or 20, you still only have 5, okay? So I just wanna be clear. You don't have more than that. Here, you pick the candidate, what they like to say is the candidate that you like. But you may not like anybody. Right, I know who I'm talking to. We be like, I ain't voting, I don't like none of them running. So that doesn't work. So I say, let's look at the policies, the things that we care about, and pick the candidates that align with the things we care about. So you may not like them, but you be like, they okay on housing. Or I like what they think about education. So in this case, the candidate that aligns closest was candidate B. That's your first choice. So in the first choice column, that's where you mark the circle for the candidate that's your preferred. That's your number 1 choice. You want them in. Then you say, you know what, okay, here's some other people. Let me see who else might align with me on how I feel about funding public libraries. Let me see who aligns with me on parks and arts and culture in New York City. And you say, you know what? Candidate C is my second choice. So you see in that second choice column, you shade in that oval that corresponds. And so on and so forth. So you guys see it. Are you clear? Any questions on how this works? Okay. I'm going to show you a real ballot too at the end. Now, potential errors. You can't have 2 favorites. There are no 2 number 1s, no 2 number 2s, no 2 number 3s. You can only pick one. You got to pick one for each column. So you get 1 first choice, 1 in the second, 1 in the third, 1 in the fourth. And what will happen in the city is that you may get an error message on your ballot. The machine may say, boop, this don't look right. Do you want to move forward or do you want to try again? And you have at least 2 chances. So you get 3 ballots when you go and vote. So you have 2 chances to make a mistake. This is also important. Listen, you're not superpowering candidate B doing this, okay? This is not saying, oh, I'm giving candidate B 5 votes. That's not how any of this works. And the reason why this is important to note, people say, when I do ranking, I feel like I'm splitting the vote. If I give somebody else, that might take away from my main candidate. In ranked choice voting, that is not true. You have your first choice. Your vote stays with your first choice as long as your first choice candidate stays in the race. Your vote will never leave your candidate unless they are eliminated, and this is why giving your candidate all your rankings is not a good idea, because the only reason why your vote goes to your second choice is if your first choice is eliminated. So now you keep sending a vote to an eliminated candidate, that is wasting your vote. So vote tabulation, this is where the fun is. So the first round, all the first choice votes are counted. And they say if nobody gets that majority, 50% plus 1, it goes to rounds. But in this case, if we look here, candidate B got 54% of the first choice votes, it's done. That's it, it's over. candidate B is the winner because they have 54% of the vote. But if that doesn't happen, in this case, you go into what they call rounds of counting. And the way rounds works is, let's say we see here, candidate B, we had the first choice votes. The person with the least amount of votes gets eliminated. So in this situation, candidate D had the least amount of votes. So candidate D is eliminated, and all of candidate D's votes are now going to be distributed based on your choices. So this is important to remember. There's no automatic, oh, all of candidate D's votes are going to go to candidate C. That's not how it goes. If I pick candidate D as my first choice, but my second choice is candidate A, when candidate D is eliminated, my vote is going to go to candidate A. But you could have voted for candidate D, and your second choice could have been candidate C. So it's going to go from candidate D to candidate C for you, and then my vote is going to go up to candidate A, and somebody else who picked candidate B, their vote would then go from D to B, and so on. Everybody clear on that? Any questions on this piece? Because this is where a lot of people say they don't really get it and understand. Okay, I'm going to do it again slowly. We're going to do it again slowly. So we have the first choice votes calculated. Candidate D had the least amount of votes, unfortunately. So what's going to happen is candidate D's votes are going to be redistributed based on the second choices of everyone who picked candidate D as their number one. So candidate D is my number one, but my number two is candidate A. So now my vote is going to candidate A. You could pick candidate D, and your second choice could be candidate C. Then your vote would go to candidate C. Or you could have picked candidate D, and then your next choice was candidate B. So then your vote would go from D to B. My vote would go from D to A, and someone else's vote could go from D to C. But it's based on your choice. Yes. Oh, we got two. We got two. Okay. Yes. 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 Yes, that's correct.
That's based on the fact that candidate that you chose, the first is eliminated.
Yes. Yes.
That candidate is eliminated, and that goes to the other choices you picked.
Yes, exactly. So just to say what he said, basically, your vote moves to a new candidate because that candidate that you selected was eliminated. And this is what happens throughout the whole process. I'm going to go on to the next slide. Let me go back. So we see here, there's still no one with that 50% plus one. So we're going to the next round. So now we saw here, I'm going to bounce back. Candidate C had the least amount of votes with only 24%, even in the next round. So now everybody who picked candidate C as their first or second choice, their votes were redistributed in the next round because they had the second least amount of votes. So now we're in the third round of counting, and now we see here that the votes were redistributed again, and we have candidate B with 58%, and they will be declared the winner. And if there were more candidates, this process would continue until there are only two candidates left. Any questions about this? Oh, we're getting to that. We're getting to that. His question was, what happens if the person only selected one candidate and their candidate is eliminated? Oh, we're coming to that. That's a great question. So the benefits of ranking. By ranking multiple candidates, you still have an effect on the election. So it's not splitting your vote. It's just saying, listen, my main person may not make it all the way, and that's okay. You give them a shot by ranking them, then your ballot continues. And it says, you know what, I may not like this person number 1, but this person's a good number 2, and this person's a good number 3. And so you still have an impact on who wins. Ranking them, you actually have your vote continue, because what happens is, to his question, if you don't pick another candidate, you lose a say in who actually wins the race in the next rounds. Because the rounds are gonna keep going whether or not we pick, but other people are ranking. And they're taking advantage and making sure that their ballot works for them as long as possible. And that's really my goal, is to make sure that our ballots are working for us as long as possible. We cannot put our eggs in one basket and risk our votes being exhausted. Don't rank someone you don't want to win. Don't rank someone you don't want to. I heard some chuckles. Anybody want to say something about that? Don't rank somebody you don't want to win. I encourage ranking. I believe in the process because this is the law of the land now. So I feel like we should fully participate by ranking. But if you don't want someone to win at all, you do not want them to be elected at all, do not rank them on your ballot. Don't shade in the oval. And it's okay. You may not get to 5. I want you to at least get to 3. But you may not make it to 5, and that's all right. But if you don't want somebody to be in that office, don't do it. Do not shade in the oval. Ballot exhaustion. So this is the formal term for what happens when people do not rank. So you ask what happened? If you don't rank, basically your ballot is put on the side and it's not even calculated in the tabulation for that 50% plus 1 majority. So I want to be clear, this is why we want to keep it working as long as possible. If you don't rank and your person is eliminated, your ballot is moved to the side. Now, you could rank 5 people. And if all 5 of those people are eliminated, then your ballot will also be exhausted, but at least you tried. You ranked, it's okay. You voted, maybe you didn't have a chance, who knows? But you gave it a shot, you ranked. You could also rank and have so many candidates that, again, you don't have enough to vote. So like in this case with the mayor's race, there's like 10 candidates. You only got 5. You only have 5. But this is where we want to make sure people understand. You got to rank more than 1. We don't want this to happen. We don't want your candidate to get eliminated and then your vote is out in 1 round. Because there are people, you know, there's usually a couple of candidates, especially in a primary. There are some people who have some similar policies that you can kind of say, you know what, maybe that one is my preference first for this, but then there's always a second that's kind of close, you know, in the way they think about things and the way they'll approach. So more on ballot exhaustion. Again, if you vote for one candidate and they're eliminated, and so this is an example. This is from 2021. This is a city council race. And you see here inactive ballots. That's the term for exhausted ballots. And we see here as the rankings go on and on, more ballots were eliminated, and by the end of the race, there were almost about 850 ballots that were exhausted. And that's really because by the time they got to the top 2 with so many candidates, there were people who didn't pick the top 2 at all. And they were in the race, and then their votes were exhausted. Maybe nobody picked Oswald or Aisha to win. And again, that's okay, but we want you to use all 5. This is example of the results from the mayor's race. These are the RCV votes here. So you see here, Eric, and I just want to also go back to something, another key point. Notice here, in round 1, the leader was Oswald Feliz. Oswald Feliz won the race. In the mayor's race, Eric Adams, in this primary, he was the leader at the beginning. He ended up winning at the end. 93% of ranked choice voting elections, the person that is leading in the first round usually wins the race. That's just a rule of thumb, about 93% of the time. Here you see candidates are eliminated. Some were eliminated in groups. These are referred to as batch eliminations. This happens because at a certain point, it's statistically impossible for you to catch up. It's a numbers game. So some recommendations. Again, rank 2 to 3. Don't just vote for one. I mean, but if you feel that way, you really only want to vote for one, you can vote for one. But we want that ballot to keep working as long as possible. Again, working with legacy organizations, D9, NAACP, etc., making sure that our communities understand when these kinds of conversations are happening. So it's in New York City, but it's actually not in the rest of the state yet, but there's conversations. What I like this time in the process is that some entities are creating slates. So unions, some parties are endorsing groups of candidates and saying, listen, these are the 4 people that we like. Rank them how you want, but these are the 4 we support. Giving a rank endorsement. If it's the law, which it is, educate, educate, educate. Create tools. This is another important thing. If people want to inform, listen, I know that a lot of times people say, I don't have time to go out and learn about all the people who are running, I'm busy. Create tools so that people can get information on the candidates so that they can be an informed ranked choice voter. And of course, host issuing candidates forums like this and sign up for newsletters and stay in the know for the candidates. They all have websites and social media. So some concerns for our community specifically, for me personally, is premature ballot exhaustion due to not ranking. That is something I'm really concerned about because the first time we did it, people were against, they were like, I don't want to rank, I don't know what this is, I'm not doing this, and then your ballot is cast to the side because your candidate is eliminated. We don't want that to happen. We know that our folks vote different. We don't like nobody on the ballot. We're not going to the polls. I tell people you can write somebody in if you want, but go vote, go be in the number. You got to go be in the number. And of course, again, it's worth repeating, don't rank somebody you don't want to win. And this is my information, and I'm here to answer some questions. Any questions on ranked choice voting? Oh, here you go. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Any questions? Any questions? Oh, go ahead. I don't know in terms of countries, and I can't say better. And the only reason I can't say better is because they say that for the most part, if you're in the lead in the first round, you end up winning. So like, I get why people do it, but I'm like, if 93% are winning anyway, because when they're leading in the first round, then, you know, maybe we could still do plurality. But what folks have said to me about it is that they really want to make sure that the person that is representing us in government is actually someone, it's like a consensus candidate. You know what I mean? So at least, maybe they're not your first, second, or third choice, but they were the choice of most of the voters. So that's what the idea is. Because in times like this type of election year, when all these seats are open and you have 5, 6, 7, 8 candidates running, people could win with 20% of the vote. But that also means that 80% of people pick somebody else. And so when they do RCV, they're saying, okay, maybe you got 20% in the first round, and then eventually people kind of said, oh, like, you okay. And that's what they're trying to get to, that consensus piece.
Okay, could you go over the candidates that are running that you cannot rank choice? So people
Yes,
understand that.
absolutely. Thank you for that question. Hold on 1 second. But I'm gonna get this. Things pop up on the screen. I have something for you all. So The reason why I'm showing the sample ballot is for a couple of reasons. How many people know that they can find their sample ballot online? That's not enough hands. Find my poll site, findmypollsite.vote.nyc. In New York City, you can view your sample ballot. This is an actual sample ballot from 2021. Is there candidates on here I know? Anybody in the room? Alvin. Who else we got here? Stacy. Okay, so we see here. So, the question was, can we go over the people who are not ranked choice? And I'm gonna do that. But I'm also gonna give, this is a little cheat sheet. So you notice here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you see these columns? This is the hint. This is how you know the race is ranked choice, when you see the columns. If you only see one circle here, that's when you know it's not ranked choice. So that's just if you're confused. You say, is it ranked choice, not ranked choice? If you see these columns, that's RCV, single, not RCV. Now, ranked choice voting and the non-ranked choice voting seats, district attorney, anything that's state. So we have here district leader seats. Is that another, what's that? Yeah, both of those are district leader seats and district attorney because these are actually under the state. Ranked choice voting is only for municipal elections, mayor, comptroller, public advocate, borough president, city council. Only those 5 are RCV. So you're not gonna see this for your member of Congress next year. You're not gonna see this for US Senate. You're not gonna see this for your state legislature at all, just for those 5. And again, this is the clue. Read your ballot, y'all. That's another tip. Read your ballot. People are not reading their ballot. Encourage them to read their ballot, turn it over. It's telling you here. You can pick 1, rank up to 5. So the instructions are there. Any other questions? Find my poll site .vote.nyc. And you can view your sample ballot, you can find your early voting site, and you can find your election day poll site, which is sometimes different. You had a question? Mm-hmm. What's your question?
My question is like for the ranked polls, can you do like, let's say you want your candidate to be ranked number 1,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't necessarily have a second choice.
Go ahead.
So you don't necessarily have a second choice. So can you just like skip numbers in terms of the rankings? Like can you just do one person ranked number 1, one person ranked number 3, one person ranked number 5?
You can do that, but what's gonna happen is your ballot is still gonna move to them next anyway. So even if you skip number 2 and rank them in the 3rd, so if you voted for them here, but no one here, it's still gonna go to the 3rd, 2nd, because that's just the next space. Oh yes, sorry. So the question is, can you rank 1st, 3rd, and 5th? And in theory, you can rank 1st, 3rd, and 5th, but your ballot is still gonna move 1st, 2nd, 3rd because it's gonna go 1, 2, 3. So it's gonna skip and go to that next one on your ballot. Any other questions? Are you sure? I have more answers on ranked choice voting. So everybody knows how to rank choice? Y'all ready? So you can explain this to 5 people? Okay. If any other questions come up, I'm here all night. You sure y'all have? Okay, go ahead. I know. So when you say opposite, you mean on the other? Now, it depends on what side you're looking. No, seriously, this is important. It's a good question. It depends. So now we see we're in a similar situation that we were in 4 years ago with borough president in Manhattan, with district attorney, with district leaders. We got judicial delegates. It's a whole lot of things on the ballot. Always, I tell people, flip it over just in case. That's also why it's important, if you view your sample ballot in advance, you'll know what to look for. You plug in your address, it will give you your exact ballot, or how it's going to look, and you see this is a sample. It's going to tell you how it's going to look, and you're going to be prepared. Any other voting resources people know about? Come on, y'all got to know there's some voting resources out there. Campaign Finance Board, NYC Votes. They mail you a booklet about the candidates. When you get it in the mail, make sure you read it. I don't know how many times people say to me, oh yeah, that sounds familiar. It's on my coffee table. It's on the dining room table. Haven't read it yet. It's going to tell you who's going to be on your ballot. I don't know. Where them fans at? Where them fans? I'm like, I got 'em. But no, that's helpful. Sorry, that was total tangent, I'm sorry. And we in the church too, I'm like. But no, actually, we can. That's something that D9 could do, is to put together maybe a slate of candidates who are running in Harlem, so people know what to expect. A lot of times, candidates actually invest in that kind of information too, because they want you to know they're running, so they might put together some sort of palm card, is what I would normally call it, not a fan, but yes, they put a palm card together. That's a great suggestion, D9. I saw another question, another hand.
Yes. If this is so important, why don't we have a lot of commercials, just like they have commercials, vote for this one candidate, vote for that candidate, and say, if you're gonna go for a candidate, vote this way and show this document so the people know how to vote. Because there's a lot of people that's not here right now, and a lot of people need to know all of this.
So I was going to say there have been a few commercials. So NYC Votes, which is the arm of the New York City Campaign Finance Board that does this sort of work, they have put out some commercials. There's a lot on social media. 4 years ago, Common Cause actually also put out a lot of information on ranked choice voting. But to be honest with you, I don't know why there aren't more commercials. You know what? I can tell you why there aren't more commercials. I'm playing games. Commercials cost a lot of money. And I don't know how many people are actually investing in democracy on that level outside of entities like NYC Votes for the city government. But again, I tell people, every registered voter, if you're a registered Democrat or registered in a political party that has an election that's coming up, they're going to mail you information. And so this is going to come to your mailbox, and you should read it. And that's one of the ways that they do it. I think that's probably one of the least expensive ways, but there have been a few ads that NYC Votes has done to make sure people are informed about ranked choice voting. But it costs a lot of money for a commercial. They do more on social media, and they also look for partners, again, like D9, like NAACP, like NCNW. We had Working Families Party, as well as some unions actually talk about ranking this cycle. So there are some people doing it, but it costs a lot of money for ads. Oh. Yes. So that's good. So that the Gothamist, is that running now? Is that now? Oh, is it the city? Okay, so the resource is the city, where you can plug in your values, things that you care about, and based on those policy views that you have personally, they will give you a ranking based on that. So that's a really great resource. And those were some of the kinds of resources that popped up in 2021 also, where you can, plug and play and some, those kind of gamification of the process, which I liked. Any other resources? Any other questions? Because I don't want anybody to leave here having a question about RCV. I could probably say more. Did I miss anything, Lois? Lois and I were together. Should I mention it? The judges aren't RCV, but I'll mention the judges.
They're usually on the ballot, and people should understand when you flip it over, they're there, and that is one vote.
Yes, so I will say that for the group, just for everybody to know. In addition to the judicial delegates, assembly district leaders, which are party positions, there will be judges on the ballot. Again, important to flip, because we don't know how, I can't tell you how it's gonna look. That was a sample from 2021. The sample ballot is not out yet. When it comes out, that's when we'll know, and make sure you're voting. You might even get a second page, depending on your district. It might be too many candidates for the one back and front. But please flip it, read it. Any other questions? Last, okay, go ahead. I can put it on the screen. I can do that. Find my poll site, .vote.nyc. Ballotpedia is also good. Yes, Ballotpedia is a good resource. Come on with the resources. And is this something that we could email if the guest registered? We can kind of email these resources to the guest? Is that possible? Did I hear an absolutely? Oh, perfect. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to send out these resources that came up today in this conversation. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm going to show a video, not a ranked choice voting video. They just asked me to run a video because my computer's here. Oh, do we have anything? What you got? Thank you, everybody, for your questions and for listening. Please, I'll be here all night if something else comes up to answer. Thank you. Thank you. Everyone, did you get the QR code to add your questions? They want to make sure you're adding your questions for tonight for the candidates. You should have a QR code. Okay. Oh, you can scan this at the front. If you would like to submit a question, the QR code is at the registration table. You can scan it at the front and upload your questions. And Chastity will come around.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Christina Dozier, and I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and am also a member of the coalition, the Harlem D9 Votes Coalition, who put this event together tonight. And so we are in transition in the moment, but we're gonna keep rolling because we know that it's like getting late, it's a weekday, like that type of thing. So just sit tight, and then we'll move forward with the program. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, good evening. Good evening. It's a black church. We do a little call and response here. On behalf of Pastor Reverend Dr. Malcolm J. Bird, the pastor here, and a member of the oldest and the coldest Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and of course my name is Audrey Williamson, executive minister here at Mother Zion, and a member of the first and the finest Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. We want to thank all of you because we all wear perhaps different colors, but we all have the same purpose. And so we're so grateful that you came here and are holding this Mayoral Candidates Forum at the Mother A.M.E. Zion Church, the oldest African-American institution in the state of New Jersey. So what we know is an informed electorate is the key to a democracy that is sustainable. We are seeing what a uninformed electorate looks like in the rest of the country. So we need to be informed and continue to make sure that our constituents are clear about how and what and when and where they do their voting and how their votes can count. And so thank you. So thank you for being here. We welcome you to the candidates, to the leaders of this event, to D9 members all over, and to the guests for joining us today and allowing Mother Zion to be your host for this important event. Again, thank you so very much for being here.
Good evening again. Not deja vu, I was just up here a few minutes ago. So again, Christina Dozier, member of Delta Sigma Theta, also a member of the D9 Harlem Votes Coalition. It's a coalition of Harlem-based members of the D9 who are committed to elevating our community's voter education and civic engagement, as well as their turnout at the polls. And so tonight's Mayoral Forum is in furtherance of that mission, and we would not be here tonight without the hard work of those in the D9 Harlem Votes Coalition who made up the organizing committee for tonight's Mayoral Forum. So I just want to shout them out. We have Pascal Bernard, who is a member of Delta Sigma Theta. We have Erica Ewan, who's also a member of Delta Sigma Theta. We have Drew Gabriel, who's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. We have Shauna Harmingoff, who's a member of AKA, Alpha Kappa Alpha. We also, right, yeah, okay. We have Athena Moore, who's also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, and we have Keith Tobbs, who's a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. And so now to finish delivering tonight's welcome, I want to pass it off to Erica and Drew, who worked the most and the hardest on tonight's event. And so we just want to give them a round of applause and thank them for their hard work. So thank y'all.
This was a surprise. This was not on the actual agenda in our run-up show. But I just want to say this has been a pleasure to bring this type of engagement to Harlem, get us excited again about voting, get us out in the community, and also making our voices heard. So thank you so much for being here. Drew?
Erica, you said everything else, and in the interest of necessarily making sure that this show runs on time, Erica's a stickler for that, just so we all know. But thank you all for coming out. Really do appreciate it. And again, the goal was to make sure that we engage the Harlem community, but also letting everyone know what voting options are, right, from that standpoint, and the fact that necessarily we're going into a series of elections too as well, so letting this be the first of many. So thank you all for coming out.
And so next up, we have the amazing Athena Moore. So I'll pass it off to her. Is she out here right now? She was literally just here. Oh, okay, she went to the restroom. Oh, okay. So in the meantime, if you are a chapter president, would you please stand if you're a member? We have no chapter presidents in, oh, okay. Oh yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. Oh, nice, wonderful, wonderful. And then if people want to shout out their particular chapter, feel free to do so. we can feel that moment in this way as well. So who do we have represented tonight?
Good evening, everybody. Steve Miller, Epsilon Sigma chapter of Harlem Sigmas. Welcome. Very important event.
Awesome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Lane, president of the Alpha Gamma Lambda chapter, the Harlem Alphas. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Perfect. Perfect. Anybody else want to shout out their chapter before we move on? No, you can go ahead.
So I know that our second vice president will be here any minute if she's not here already. Cheryl Marius of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Talladega chapter.
Awesome. Anybody else? Awesome. We'll turn it over to you, Athena.
Greetings, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I have the esteemed pleasure of introducing our moderator, who is eager to join us in the next second. My name again is Athena Moore, and I am the Social Action and Advocating for Social Justice co-chair for Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And my co-chair, Effie McCartney Donaldson, you'll see her in just a minute as our timekeeper. And I'm sure you've had the esteemed pleasure of meeting Sean Harmongoff, who's also part of our team. And at this time, I'd like to ensure that we welcome Basil Smikle Jr., Dr. Basil Smikle Jr. He is the professor of practice and director of the MS program in nonprofit management in the School of Professional Studies at Columbia University. As an MSNBC political analyst, he regularly shares his insights on national media outlets. With 20 years in higher education and 30 years devoted to public service, his influence and insights span a broad spectrum of contemporary issues, including civic engagement, nonprofit advocacy and communications, as well as electoral politics and education policy. His contributions earned him numerous accolades, including the New York Urban League Community Service Award, the Bronx Branch NAACP WEB Du Bois Scholar Award, citations from the New York State Governor and Comptroller, and a proclamation from the New York City Council for his unwavering commitment to public service and education equity. And while I know it's a challenge to hear all of these wonderful things about yourself, it's fitting to make sure that we give people their flowers while they're here. So bear with me. Prior to his role at Columbia, Basil was the distinguished lecturer and director of the public policy program at the Roosevelt House Public Policy Institute at Hunter College, City University of New York. And in 2015, he was appointed by former Governor David Paterson to serve as the executive director of the New York State Democratic Party, where he was the second highest ranking Democrat in the state. Basil worked closely with elected officials and community leaders to manage electoral and fundraising strategies for the state. He recruited candidates for political office and worked closely with the Democratic National Committee to create grassroots mobilization programs and act as a party surrogate during the 2016 cycle. Basil's impactful career also includes serving as a senior aide to Hillary Rodham Clinton on her Senate staff, where he provided invaluable counsel on statewide policy and politics. His work and collaboration left a substantial impact on the state of New York, with Mrs. Clinton lauding Basil as a key advisor and tremendous public service committed to ensuring all voices are heard. Basil holds a PhD, as we said, in politics and education, but also an MPA from Columbia University and a Bachelor of Science from Cornell University. So that means he's well learned, yes? He also serves, finally, as a trustee. When does he have time to do all of this? Of the Franklin D. Roosevelt Presidential Library, and sits on the boards of the Center for Charter Excellence, the Opportunity Charter in Harlem, Oliver Scholars, Food Corps, and the Association to Benefit Children. Please give a wonderful, warm round of applause to our moderator, Dr. Basil Smikle.
I'm just trying to make my mama proud, right? Thank you very much.
I'd like to also, at this time, introduce our youth moderators. We call them our youth ambassadors. They are here in service, and we're so proud to have them tonight. We have Nasir Anderson, Columbia Secondary High School, 17-year-old Nasir. Where are you, Nasir? Please come forward. We also have our second ambassador, youth moderator, Jada Tolliver Rodriguez, and she is with the High School of Liberal Arts, the Youth Board for New York City, and she is 15 years old. We're proud of her as well. And we have one additional young person who is Kayla Nicole Johnson from Columbia University, and she is 20 years old, and we're so proud to have you here as well. So you have a fitting team who will carry us forth through the day, and I want to again thank all of our partners. We are proud to be here in service and proud to represent Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Let me do that one more time. Good evening. We're about to make some decisions about the future of our city. One more time. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. Do I understand? We do have a video by Speaker Adrian Adams, who could not be here tonight. So please give your attention to the video. Okay, I'll keep going. Why don't I introduce our first candidate? You could do the video. Okay, video.
Just as a candidate for mayor, but as a lifelong public servant, a daughter of this city, and a devoted member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. To my fellow members of the Divine Nine, I see you, I honor you, and I understand the power and purpose we represent when we come together in service of our communities. The challenges we face are layered and historic, but certainly not insurmountable. Solutions are in reach with true leadership. Leadership not focused on redemption or retribution, but with a mayor that leads with courage and a clear plan. A mayor that's in it for us. I've spent my career addressing our city's housing crisis head on. Under my leadership, we approved over 120,000 new homes, while deepening affordability and protecting homeowners, especially in Black and brown communities. I've championed laws to stop deed theft, expanded public housing investment, and pushed forward a vision for home ownership, not displacement, because we cannot afford to lose another 200,000 Black New Yorkers like we have over the past 2 decades. I led the City Council in passing major child care expansions and created CUNY Reconnect, bringing over 47,000 working adults, mostly women of color, back to finish their degrees, and I'm not done yet. As mayor, I'll expand this kind of economic opportunity across all 5 boroughs. As we face attacks on the values and principles that make this city strong, I've always ensured that equity isn't just a talking point, it's a commitment. In my first speech as Speaker, I called out economic inequities in front of our city's business leaders. And since then, I've passed laws to tackle pay disparities, championed the Minority Business Accelerator to grow Black and Latino-owned businesses, and advance diversity reforms in institutions like the FDNY. Because representation must reach every level on payrolls and promotions and in procurement. As we think about healthy and thriving communities across the 5 boroughs, public safety means more than just policing. It means investing in jobs and youth programs, mental health services, and safe, thriving neighborhoods. I believe equity is a prerequisite to safety. That's why I've pushed for job training programs and community violence intervention, and why I will continue to center prevention over punishment. When our communities are supported, they're safer, period. To my fellow members of the Divine Nine, we are the keepers of the legacy, the builders of bridges, and the standard bearers of excellence. I ask for your partnership and your trust as we write the next chapter for our city. This is our moment to lead boldly, govern justly, and ensure that every New Yorker can thrive. Yes, I'm Adrian, and I'm running for mayor because I'm in it for us. Thank you.
You can give her a round of applause. Now we have our first in-person presidential, wow, mayoral candidate. I had to switch to mayoral candidate, Mr. Michael Blake. Michael Blake, it's a pleasure to have you with us this evening. I kind of said that you were running for president, so disregard that.
Oh,
We're
here we
running
go.
for mayor.
Here we go. Here we go.
But I will pose the first few questions, and then we will have our youth moderators pose the remainder. Here we go. Cost of living is where I want to start. How will you address the rising cost of living in New York City, especially housing, transportation, and food prices?
Good evening to my fellow Greeks. Good to see everybody. How y'all doing tonight? Good evening, everybody. How we doing tonight? You know, we got to show love. I see that. We got the energy from the young one right there. Definitely answer the question, but, you know, being back here at Mother A.M.E. Zion, I was here just 2 weeks ago with Brother Reverend Dr. Bird. It was a blessing, and also got to show my love because I brought my mama with me today, right there. So, you know, we got Hillary Lawrence in the building. Can't be Greek without a mama getting you here, so right there. We can all agree that it is simply too expensive in New York City. And very specifically, though, we got to talk through how do we actually fix this and change this. And so when we talk through what to do, we come with very specific ideas. First and foremost, I have said, you have to have local median income because area median income is not working for us here in New York City. A.M.E. is leading to us having unaffordable housing because effectively you're in a zone where you are wondering what's happening when Westchester County is impacting what's happening here. Second, I have said from the very beginning, you have to end credit scores used for rent and homeownership applications. It is a discriminatory practice that is blocking out too many of our communities. Third, you have to increase and change the income thresholds for housing applications. Because right now you essentially have to be rich or poor enough to get access to a home in New York. And it's not right at all. You have to ensure that we're also helping people make and keep more money in our pocket. So fundamentally that happens by having employers that are going to be paying higher wages. And for anyone that is contracted with New York City, we would have an expectation of them that they would pay higher wages than what they're doing right now. Why would we help someone become a billionaire and millionaire if people are struggling to pay their bills? Housing and childcare are the two fundamental expenses in our city. And if we change those policies, we can actually make it easier for us to be able to afford what's happening here. And so I'll go to other questions, but that's how we start by actually addressing cost of living in a very real and practical way.
Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Blake. Just so you know, and I neglected to mention for all those, we do have 2 timekeepers here. Raise your hand. 2 minutes per question. So if you see some hands raised or the alarm go off, just know that we are trying to keep everybody on time here. So thank you. So let me go to the second question, which is related to gun violence. What specific policies will you implement to reduce gun violence, especially among youth?
Well, this is very close and personal to home, and I was talking to some of the brothers about this just past week. The shooting of the young 16-year-old was about 6 minutes from my crib. My mom and I were actually outside when the cops started driving up the block because of the stray bullet that took her life. And so, first and foremost, we have to get more of the guns off the street so that these young kids are not doing it, and very specifically, the ghost guns. and the ones that are actually making it easier for more bullets to come out faster. That is something that has to be addressed immediately. Second, we actually have to put more money and funding into our violence interruption work, as opposed to $1.4 billion going to NYPD overtime. Because if we're serious about changing things, you could say, right, don't hold back over there. I like that, right? It is about being very intentional about the challenges that are happening in our communities. Third, we actually have to invest in our people up front rather than on the back end. And too often, we're not actually making sure that our kids in our communities have more jobs, higher wages, open community centers, schools that are open past 3 o'clock, so they have things to do as opposed to what's happening on the back end. When we look at these young kings and queens, that's what happens, because too often we are not actually helping them forefront. Fourth, we actually have to be much more intentional around what are we doing around our policies around violence prevention. And that is intertwined. That's everything from repeat offenders that are in specific communities at a higher threshold to really understanding what is leading to someone coming back out on the street easily. When you see what's been happening, and one thing you should ask Eric when he's here later, one of the things is when you see Rikers Island that a federal takeover is happening is because we were not actually addressing gun violence and criminal injustice on the front end, which led to this crisis right here. So if you want to actually seriously address violence in our communities, let's make sure we help someone not pick up a gun in the first place. Let's make sure they have a book in the book bag in the first place. Make sure they're not being arrested for a dime bag in the first place. And then actually hold people accountable regardless of their age. If they take someone's life, we got to hold them accountable no matter what their skin color may be.
All right. My final question, with respect to youth programs. How will you invest in youth programs to reduce long-term crime rates?
I have the most detailed education and youth plan of anyone in this race. The My Brother's Keeper program, that started by us. We're still the only state in the country that has brought that anywhere. In my work before this, I worked for President Obama for 6.5 years. Then I was in the Assembly for 6 years. We brought the My Brother's Keeper Alliance. Many people in this room were with us when we launched it at Lehman College. Still the only state in the country to do that. How is that connected to the question? We have now $20 million going every single year around how are we helping our young kids to go to school and graduate from school, and have now expanded it to a My Sister's Keeper program so that our sorority sisters of all the sororities can then help the young women as well. Do those steps, then you change the game. Actually utilize these buildings that are not being helped for our communities in a very practical way. That means we have to fund our Greeks to be able to help run the programs for our people. If we do these steps, you're interacting with the young students every single day. Then, taking the next step further, how are we being very focused around universal childcare, which is not just from 3 to 6 in the afternoon, but also on the weekends? Because if someone has the opportunity to understand that their child will be looked after, that helps with all things that are happening for the young people. But very practically, help these young cats get jobs consistently, not just doing the summer youth programs. If you do that, you transform everything else that's happening. And we have laid out this approach, but it's also taken a step further. I believe every student should have civics, financial literacy, and mental health before they graduate. If you take those kinds of steps, you create a global citizenry for these young people to be engaged in a thoughtful way where they're being empowered. And so again, we are very serious about this. As someone who comes from a divine nine like you and understand the dynamic, if we don't actually help the kids have something to do every single day, it leads to your first two questions. It leads to them going down a road that they're not supposed to be going down that road. But we can turn things around, because I will remind people, that young brother, young sister that's standing on a corner that might be doing something wrong is a mathematical genius that has to just be connected to a better opportunity. And if we do this better as a mayor, we can show what's possible, and that's why I'm running for mayor of New York City. I saw that.
You mentioned getting youth off the street. How do you plan to help students like us get the skills we need for careers in growing industries?
Get the skills you need for?
In growing industries.
Growing industries. Dope question. That's what I'm talking about. We have to, first and foremost, have more paid internships for the young people, because we can't keep saying to young people, you know what, keep doing these opportunities, but figure it out on your own. We then have to make sure that we are paying for the expenses that help young people to take on those opportunities, which is transportation, additional food, and if there's additional expenses around housing, also cover that as well, because that is part of the experience. We can't keep saying to someone, I hope you're gonna figure this out. We're gonna give you that. Then we have to have the pipeline and the skills pipeline to the jobs that we want them to get connected to. When we're seeing the growth in jobs that are happening in New York City, a lot of it is happening around healthcare itself. That's one of the reasons why we supported the Diversity in Medicine program. But it's also about what we do with minority women-owned businesses, that I want to say, if we give you contracts and funding, you're going to take the step to make sure that the young people are actually going to be hired and trained for these opportunities at the same time. When we think about growth opportunities, it's also in terms of what's happening around the environment. There's more water than land. We sometimes forget about that. And so there are tremendous job and training opportunities that we can be connecting you with immediately. But then it's also about being more intentional about our asset mapping. We have a $114 billion budget in New York City. It doesn't make sense that our young people are still wondering how they can get connected to an opportunity. A lot of it is that we are not doing a better job in terms of connecting you. And so laying out and understanding what are you interested in, seeing that we give you the skills and training, utilizing organizations such as National GEM Consortium, which is one of the coalitions that is here in Harlem, demonstrating that partnership, that's how we help you get connected to those growing opportunities. But we have to make sure that we're not saying to you, figure it out on your own. Paid internships, higher paid jobs, and addressing the expenses, that's how we actually help you get a better chance. Feeling like a Sphinxman right now. They looking
No,
at
I
me.
know,
They're
that's
like,
right, that's right, that's true, right? That's all we have for you, sir. That was it, yeah? Just the one question? Okay, yeah, that's it.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you always. I thought there was one more question. Website is blakefornyc.com. There are 11 of us on the ballot. I'm listed 9th on the ballot by no particular order. We are asking for your support, that you rank us first. If not, want to be second. But again, blakefornyc.com. Much love, everybody. God bless. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
06.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Zoran Mandani. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. I'll ask the first 3 questions and then we'll turn it over to our youth here. Everyone gets the same questions, so our first one is with respect to cost of living. How will you address the rising cost of living in New York City, especially housing, transportation, and food?
Who here thinks that it's too expensive to live in New York City? If you could raise your hand. I'll say many, most, close to all. This is the most expensive city in the United States of America. It's the 3rd most expensive city in the world, tied with Zurich. And too often politicians speak about cost of living as if it's a crisis that we're just spectators to. We are participants in this. Local government has the tool to deliver a more affordable city. I've been running for 7 months with a very clear message to make this city affordable, especially for the working class people who've built it. There are 3 key ways to do so. The first, in a city of 8.5 million people, 2.5 million live in rent-stabilized housing. I will freeze the rent for every single one of those tenants. The second, over 1 million New Yorkers ride the slowest buses in the nation every day. And 1 in 5 New Yorkers can't even afford that MetroCard anymore. I will make every single one of those buses fast and free. And finally, as someone who grew up in this city, I know that when my friends who I grew up with tell me they're going to settle down, I know the next sentence is going to include the words Long Island or the suburbs, because they can't afford to raise a family here. And we are going to deliver universal child care to families with children from the ages of 5 all the way down to 6 weeks of age. Because right now it costs a family $25,000 to find child care for 1 year. That's more money than it costs to send your kid to CUNY. These are some of the ways we are going to deliver a more affordable New York City. And the final thing I'll say, because I think you said food as well. We see here, no matter how much money you're making, when you go to the grocery store, you feel that sticker shock. because things you used to be able to afford now seem out of reach. We are the only campaign in this race with a plan to guarantee cheaper groceries by building on the successes we've seen in places like Kansas, studies we've seen in Chicago, to deliver a network of municipal-owned grocery stores that will actually guarantee that New Yorkers can afford their eggs, their milk, their bread. And we're going to do that while also meeting the crisis of food deserts, which are disproportionately impacting Black New Yorkers across the city.
Thank you. So my second question with respect to gun violence. What specific policies will you implement to reduce gun violence, especially among youth?
It's time to treat gun violence as what it is, which is a public health crisis. We've seen gun violence interrupters be successful in a number of different places across the city, and yet we don't have a system in every single precinct across the city. This isn't just an issue that we face, that every New Yorker is looking at. It is especially an issue that Black New Yorkers are facing, with a Black male New Yorker 88 times more likely to be a victim of gun violence than a white male New Yorker. That's unacceptable. We need to invest in the cure violence approach. We need to actually deliver the interruption that we've seen be successful in silos, and I have proposed the creation of a Department of Community Safety that will work to prioritize 5 key areas, one of which is gun violence interruption, so that we can finally address this in a manner that keeps each and every New Yorker safe, and does it by pursuing evidence-based policies, not just the same discourse we surround ourselves with every day.
And my final question, with respect to youth programs, how will you invest in youth programs to reduce long-term crime rates?
You know, I have heard often that the most effective deterrent to crime is having a job. And we have seen summer youth employment be a critical part of giving our children not only something that they can do in that summer, but a pathway to a career. That is something that we have to expand. And furthermore, you know, I hear from a lot of young people that if they want to live in this city, they think their only option is to continue to live with their parents. They have no way of making it on their own. This used to be a city where people could take a swing at something that they believed in. Now many don't, because they know if they fail, it could be fatal. And when we talk about freezing the rent, when we talk about making buses fast and free, delivering universal childcare, every policy we've released comes back from a relentless focus on an economic agenda. And that agenda also includes raising the minimum wage to $30 an hour, so that whether it's through SYEP or it's through the other jobs that we can find in this city, we have to make sure that a minimum wage is a living wage. Because today, when you look at this city, you look at the studies, it is $30 an hour. We're going to do $30 by 2030.
Speaking about the youth and community, what are your ideas for making the community safer, especially for youth without access to programs and people struggling with mental health?
You know, when you speak to many New Yorkers after affordability, it's your question, safety. And when I ask, where do people feel least safe, I often hear the subway system. That's why at the core of this proposal I put forward about a Department of Community Safety, one of the priorities is dealing with the mental health crisis, another is dealing with homelessness. Now, when it comes to homelessness, we know when the median rent in a city goes up by $100, the rate of homelessness goes up by 9%. Part of the reason we have to freeze the rent is to keep New Yorkers in their homes. Because I'm tired, as a state assembly member representing Western Queens, of having an 82-year-old senior come into my district office and say, my landlord has filed for eviction because my rent is now double the amount of money I get from my Social Security check. Yes, we were able to keep her in her home with every single proposal and program we could find. But how many more grandmothers are currently being pushed out of their home that we don't know about? And so, when it comes to this Department of Community Safety and delivering on the mental health crisis, we are going to put forward a team of dedicated mental health outreach workers that will be deployed at the 100 subway stations with the highest levels of mental health crises and homelessness to actually respond to these issues at hand. Police have a critical role to play in public safety. What we are doing now, however, is asking them to respond to every single failure in the social safety net. We are asking them to do the jobs of social workers and mental health professionals. That's part of the reason why our clearance rates for major categories of crime are so low, because we're asking them to do everything. And we've seen across the country, if you make mental health crisis response a specific responsibility of those who are trained to do that, you could actually respond to 20% of all of the calls police get without them having to ever be involved. And that's what we're finally going to deliver, evidence-based approaches that deliver on that public safety and not just talking about it.
Thank you, sir.
Final word, sir.
It is such a pleasure to be here. I appreciate these questions, and I want to just tell you a little bit about myself in the time that we have left. My name is Zohran Kwame Mamdani. I believe that to know someone, you must know where they come from. I was born in Kampala, Uganda, in East Africa. My father, in 1962, when Uganda won its independence from the British, the Ugandan government was given 23 scholarships by the American government as a gift for independence. My father won one of those scholarships. He came to the University of Pittsburgh to study to become an engineer. And about 6 or 7 months into his time, he heard words reverberating in the corridor around him. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? And it was members of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, who were looking to recruit students to get on the bus to march in Montgomery, Alabama. And he got on that bus. He marched, he was hosed down, he was thrown in jail. And he got his one phone call, and he called the Ugandan ambassador. He said, "Can you get me out of jail?" The ambassador said, "We sent you to this country to study. What are you doing in jail?" And my father said, "You sent me to this country as a gift for our freedom. They are fighting for theirs. It's the same struggle." And my father raised me with the notion of freedom and the fight for it as being interconnected. And as I sit here, I am reminded of that and the understanding that freedom is only as good as our ability to exercise it. And I think of the words of Dr. King, who said, "What good is having the right to sit at a lunch counter if you can't afford to buy a hamburger?" This campaign is about saying more than just this is the greatest city in the world. It's a campaign so that you can actually afford to live in this city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The organizers have said that they wanted to take a question from the audience. Right here.
Good evening, everyone. We have one question for you, Mr. Zohran.
Yes, ma'am.
Madani?
Yes?
This is from a community member. How would you improve the city's preparedness for future public health emergencies?
This is a great question. What we are seeing in this moment is that we are even less prepared for the next pandemic, even after just still coming through this one. And part of the reason we are less prepared is the Trump administration is looking to cut so much of the funding that is critical for our city's Department of Health. Now, we cannot look to Washington to help prepare us when Washington doesn't even believe in so many of the diseases we know are real in our own country. So what we have to do is ensure that we raise enough revenue to fund these kinds of services, to fund the preparation. That's why I have put forward a proposal that would match the top corporate tax rate of New York to that of New Jersey, 11.5%. It would tax corporations that make millions of dollars a year in profits at the same rate they pay in our neighboring state. That would raise $5 billion. I have said we should tax the New Yorkers, the top 1% who make $1 million or more every year, by a flat increase of 2%. That's a rounding error for them, about $20,000 a year. That raises $4 billion. What those things do together is allow us the opportunity to actually respond to these kinds of crises. It allows us the opportunity to provide for working people, because I know New Yorkers are tired of a politics that tells them you should celebrate the crumbs that can't even feed your family. We need to finally feed those families, keep those families here, and let those families grow old in this city, so this city becomes more than just a museum. It is a living, breathing testament to the greatness that we have created in the past and could continue to create in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration. I hope to earn your vote.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you so very much. And for all those who have just coming in, please take a seat. Welcome, welcome. It's a wonderful evening to hear from our candidates. I'd like to now bring out Jessica Ramos. Hello, good evening. Good evening. Good evening and welcome, and thank you for being here. You have 3 questions from me and one from our youth moderators. You have 2 minutes. These are our timekeepers who will keep us all on track. My first question is related to cost of living in New York City. How will you address the rising cost of living in New York City, especially housing, transportation, and food prices?
Well, I really appreciate this question. Unlike most of the candidates, well, I don't have rich parents, and I wasn't born with a famous last name. So I grew up in working class Jackson Heights and working class Queens, and really decided to become a public servant, spent a near decade working in the labor movement because my vocation has been to fight poverty. I grew up at a time when Jackson Heights actually had been dubbed the cocaine capital of the world by the Daily News, the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, and I really just have always wanted our folks to have opportunity, to be able to honor the self-determination that we all seek. And so I'm very proud to say that not only do I have a vision that is progressive and inclusive for our city, but my record shows that as well. I'm the last senator to have raised the minimum wage and tied it to inflation. And now I want to make sure that we are promoting the idea that every single human being should just need one good job to be able to provide for their families and spend time with their families. We're living through so many crises that if we actually tackled them, we'd have enough jobs for New Yorkers and then some. The housing crisis, the mental health crisis, the child care crisis, the elder care crisis. We have so much work to do that if we are able to really support our minority and women-owned businesses, I mean, nobody opens more small businesses in New York than women of color, and I'm very proud to say I was part of the team that delivered on the Mayor's Office of MWBEs when I was a member of the last mayoral administration to make sure that we were really thinking about how to concretely give our entrepreneurs seed money and actually be able to live out their dreams. That's really what the soul of the city is about and why I'm so happy to be here in Harlem today.
Thank you very much. The second question involves gun violence. What specific policies would you implement to reduce gun violence, especially among youth?
Well, first and foremost, I really do wish that we had a better partner at the federal level in order to tackle the iron pipeline. I mean, for a state that doesn't actually have gun factories, we have way too many guns on the street, and they're so readily available to our youth, in our communities, even in our immigrant communities. Somehow, it's just so easy and so cheap. And so I really wish that we could work more closely with the congressional delegation in order to send those messages to the federal government. But here, we really need to fund and invest in our communities so that we can build community-based programming and support the ones that already exist in order to continue interrupting those cycles of violence that we've seen so often. But again, to me, it all goes back to fighting poverty and making sure that we are providing economic opportunity for our young people so they don't get distracted and so other things don't seem as shiny as they might, because they really are ruining our family unit. They really challenge our faith, and we just don't want to lose any more young people like we have here in Harlem, like we have in Queens, and in so many other pockets of the city.
Thank you. My last question is related to youth programs. How will you invest in youth programs to reduce long-term crime rates?
I am running on a youth jobs guarantee. Summer Youth Employment Program has been a tremendous success for so many years. It's helped so many of our community members be able to have an opportunity that they wouldn't otherwise have. But I don't understand why it's only during the summer. We should be able to give our young people opportunities to find themselves throughout the entire year. Keep them busy. Help them figure out early on in life whether they're a desk person or a field person. Hopefully lead to greater job satisfaction and a better match with what may be their true vocation. We want to also make sure that in doing that, we are weaving in the mental health services that are needed, because right now we are starting through universal pre-K, really teach the socio-emotional learning and plant those seeds, but we haven't gone far enough. And when we're talking to our middle school children, I'm a middle school mom, I have 2 boys who are 11 and 13, who are starting to take the train by themselves. And I really think about who else is inspiring and influencing them, making sure that we're talking to them about how their body and their minds are going to be changing over the next few years is critical. So I want to make sure that we are focused on both mental health services and economic opportunity so that we can keep our young people focused on their goals.
Thank you. Our youth question for you is, what are your plans to create and maintain parks, green roofs, and other public places for young people in dense urban neighborhoods?
Well, I happen to come from the city council district that has the least amount of park space per capita, Jackson Heights, Queens. And it's an unfortunate reality because park spaces are so critical to our well-being in terms of exercise, but also, not to harp, but we are in the middle of a crisis, our mental health. It's about creating those calm corners. But it can be very difficult when those parks are not clean, when the bathroom is closed or dirty or not working. And this is why I am pledging to make sure that we're allocating 1% of the city's budget to taking care of our parks and expanding them or building new ones where there are opportunities to do so. I also admire the way Chicago has been making investments to rooftop parks that are open to the public in public spaces, in schools, at churches. There are so many opportunities if we're willing to put those shovels in the ground and actually do the work in order to allow more New Yorkers to enjoy their neighborhood and to afford their neighborhood and stay in their neighborhood. Because I think a lot of this that we haven't talked about yet is also about fighting gentrification.
Thank you.
That's all of our questions, but we'll give you the final word.
Oh, well, thank you so much. My name is Jessica Ramos. I'm the state senator representing Jackson Heights, Corona, East Elmhurst. Elmhurst in Queens, where I am born and raised and raising. I started my career in public service 20 years ago as a city council staffer during the Bloomberg administration, left to work in the labor movement, the city's social service workers union, 32BJ, and I did some work for the hotel trades and the building trades council. And I was also appointed to the de Blasio administration to round out the team that delivered on universal pre-K, the mayor's office of MWBEs, many other initiatives, and now I've been in the state senate for the past 7 years, delivering as chair of the labor committee. I really believe in us, in making sure that we are investing in people, in the New Yorkers who are clamoring for a bigger opportunity. And I'm very thankful to each and every one of you who are here because you love the city, because you love your neighbors. And I'm asking for your vote and your support in order to say no to the status quo, to people who have always historically jerked us around as political pawns, and actually say that we have talented people from within our communities that are willing to step up and assume the responsibility of our future. So thank you, Harlem, for hearing me, for asking questions, and I hope to be able to count on your support.
Senator, we actually, the organizers have told me that we do have one question from the audience, if you don't mind.
Good evening, Ms. Ramos. We have a community question. What is your perspective on supporting minority-owned businesses?
Give them all the money in the world. It's so hard because access to capital is the biggest impediment for people of color to be able to open small businesses. And commercial rents are so damn high. I'm sorry, Lord, that I said that word, but it's true. It's true. I mean, you know, we talk about the rent is too high, but so is the commercial rent. And it's harder and harder to be able to open a brick and mortar store, especially in the age of Amazon, when we're competing with online businesses, really limiting us to dry cleaners, barbershops, beauty salons, and a range and variety of restaurants, bars, and lounges. So really localizing our economy, making sure that we have a revolving fund in order to provide people of color with the seed money to open up small businesses and live their dreams, and furthermore, to take the certification of MWBEs much more seriously so that more people can qualify to bid and win contracts with the capacity that is required in order to build all of the affordable housing that's needed, in order to retrofit all of these buildings, reopen the mental health institutions that Andrew Cuomo has closed over the past 10 years, making sure that we are creating a pipeline for health professions, and we're going to need more social workers, more cognitive and behavioral therapists in the languages that New Yorkers speak, so that we can help those struggling with mental health off the subway and off our streets into compassionate care before they hurt someone and we end up relying on the criminal legal system as the de facto mental health institution that it is not designed to be. We can believe and invest in us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you for being with us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Is he with? Oh, no, I think we're good. You're good, you're good. Thank you very much. Sorry. But we're going to bring Michael Blake back because he did not get a question from the audience. So if he's still here, we would like to bring, oh, there he is. Good to see you, brother. Please.
Good evening, Mr. Blake.
Good to see you. Good evening.
Your community question is?
Why you give me that head tilt right there?
There was a little head tilt
right there.
How do you plan to build a relationship with NYPD and the community due to lack of history of trust in the city? And how will you plan to address the MTA and homelessness in the city?
Okay, you hit me with two, but I'm ready. I'm ready right there.
In 2 minutes.
I'm a Jamaican. I'll be ready for more than one question. So let's work backwards. There's 1,000 National Guard members that have been sent out into subways. We should have at least 1,000 mental health professionals that are actually going out into our subways and buses. Because if you do that, then we can seriously address what's happening in our communities. We have to have overdose prevention centers. We need opioid settlement funds. We need to address involuntary commitment. We need to make sure that our nonprofits are being reimbursed and granted up front because you're the ones that are actually helping address the mental health crisis. And we have to simultaneously address the stigma that exists too often when it comes to mental health, because if someone needs help, it is our job to go and help them. Doing that will then improve public safety at the same time. Khalif Browder was one of my constituents, as was his mom, and they did not address his mental health crisis in Rikers. He came back out, tried to turn his life around, and they did not help him in that regard. As it relates to NYPD and public safety and criminal justice, there is broken trust that exists, but we have to reset this in a very real and practical manner right now. And so I do believe every police officer should have a body camera on when they are going out and doing their work. I think there should be increased street patrol of officers actually outside and not sitting on their phones in police stations and train stations. If you take those steps, then you can have mental health professionals addressing what the police are not doing, have an increase around community policing, be more intentional around violence interruption work so that we actually have our people doing the work in the community as opposed to the officer. So that is how we envision this. In my final 30 seconds, I'm gonna be very practical because I'm an organizer right now. Take out your phones real quick. Take out your phones real quick. I got 30 seconds. Come on, I don't want to get in trouble right now, okay? To learn about what we are building, again, our website is BLAKEFORNYC.com. Blake4NYC.com. so you can learn about what we're doing right here to this degree. That's how you can learn about our collective vision, and I thank you for the time that you're giving me, everybody. God bless.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Jim Walden. Give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Hey, I'm just going to stay standing up if it's okay.
Not at all. First question, which we've asked to everyone, is related to cost of living. How will you address the rising cost of living in New York City, especially housing, transportation, and food?
Okay. How long
2
do I
minutes.
have?
You have everyone has 2 minutes.
So let me just say, affordability is super important to me for those people that know nothing about me, because for the first 25 years of my life, I couldn't afford anything. I grew up in a broken town. I stood in benefit lines with my father, which was hugely embarrassing. He was drunk half the time. We had to care for a mentally ill sister. We couldn't afford the bills. We were constantly under siege. I ultimately left the house the day after I graduated high school, and slept on a floor for a year while I tried to figure out what to do with my life, and I failed out of community college. Somehow I made myself come up to New York, and my first apartment was literally made of lumber, plastic, and sheets that in a very crowded apartment that was for 2 people, and we had 8 people in it. So I understand affordability issues, and the reason that I decided to run is because you've had politicians talking to you about this for years. They're the same people that are up on this stage. They're the same people you're going to see next, and they talk about it and they don't deliver it, but I'm going to deliver it. And so I finally got myself together and studied, and I studied this thing called economics, and it's about supply and demand, right? You guys know this, and politicians just can't seem to get this right. We need more housing, and we need the prices to come down. To make prices come down, we need a lot more housing, more than these politicians have told you that we need. We need 50,000 rent-stabilized apartments. Number one is I have a way to do it. I wrote a 100-page housing plan to get it done, and we are going to get it done because the political establishment likes to keep the crisis around instead of just solving the crisis. So when we have truly affordable housing, which is my new housing program, truly affordable doesn't mean just an AMI, an average median income, as the barometer based on all of Manhattan. It means in your borough. There's a way to have a housing program. Time? Do I have to stop?
Yeah.
All right, so really quick, 10 seconds. So I'm going to build more housing and have a truly affordable metric where everyone's capped at 25% of your average borough income, so that the rents really come down. I'm not talking about freezing, I'm talking about bringing them down. And I'm going to have not city-owned stores. I mean, do we need city-owned stores? What does the city do right? We need more supply. Sorry.
No,
Sorry.
No, it's all right. No
I don't like to
problem.
filibuster.
We'll take it out of the second question. But the second question is related to gun violence.
Yes.
What specific policies will you implement to reduce gun violence, particularly among youth?
Okay, so when I came, I have 2 minutes. When I came to New York City, I came here and I was a federal prosecutor for the first 9 years of my career. And I saw stuff that would curl your toes. Now, I was largely focusing on the Italian-American mob, so the mafia, and all of the white gangs that had formed, particularly in Queens, that were killing people left, right, and center. So this means a lot to me. I've seen the carnage with my own 2 eyes. And you know how we stop gun violence, particularly in black and brown communities? We give more opportunity. We start at the fundamental level that we're not doing for our kids what we should be doing. We've got proficiency rates in schools that are less than 50%. So we need to have direct involvement with government, not just simply benefits. Benefits are great, but to bring gun violence down, you have to have mentorship programs. You have to have learning centers in NYC communities, not simply just basketball courts. We have to land the plane on all of the things that kids need to get the kind of mentoring that they need while their parents are working their fingers to the bone, right? We judge these kids based on who they're around, but we don't give them after-school programs that are really meaningful and can give them the kind of opportunities and mentorship relationships and jobs going to Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan and places where they can really not just eke out a life, but to have a career. 30 seconds I have left. But we do have to get the guns, and that's a really difficult problem because of this advent of these things called ghost guns. And somebody mentioned them here. They're really a problem, and they're virtually undetectable. You can put as many cops on the street as you want. So I have a program that I haven't announced yet, but it's a re-entry program for people coming back, and it's better than anything like My Brother's Keeper. People coming out of jail are oftentimes the greatest tool to helping combat gun violence and kids getting involved with gangs. And so I'm going to have an ambitious reentry program. Sorry, all right, I'll stop.
Thanks.
Tried to speed up there and I couldn't land the plane on that one. Sorry.
That's okay. Last question with respect to youth programs. How will you invest in youth programs to reduce long-term crime rates?
Yeah. So this goes to what I was saying before. Politicians can talk a great game all they want to, but we are investing in so many programs that don't do any good, and what we really, really need are mentorship programs and relationships for young kids. So I am starting the most ambitious program for every single college or university in the city of New York. They're going to be required as part of their education to mentor kids in disadvantaged neighborhoods. I'm a lawyer by training. I've been a lawyer for 30 years. We have to do a certain amount of what's called pro bono work every year. As part of your college education, you should give back to the city. You should give back to especially disadvantaged communities by being a mentor to kids that need it, helping them learn to read, helping them do basic math, helping them learn tools that will help them in the real world. Again, my goal is not to help people eke out a living. It is to have a career and to have real prosperity. My Kids in Poverty program, I can talk about that, is one of the ways that I'm going to really change the narrative here so that we're not a bunch of talking politicians. I've never run for office in my life. I did it this time because I'm sick of hearing all of these people talk and not solve problems. I'm going to solve problems as mayor.
All right, thank you. That's the last of my questions, but we'll have one from our youth.
Come on, give me the hot potato. I don't want the softball questions.
What are your ideas for making our community safer, especially for youth without access to programs and people struggling with mental health?
So that's an amazing question. You didn't tell me your name. Jada? Thank you very much, Jada. That was an awesome question. So I'm going to call it flood the zone, right? We're going to flood the zone. There are two parts to that question, programs and mental health. Mental health is the huge problem that nobody is really dealing with, particularly after COVID. I mean, do you guys realize that there's something like 130,000 kids that are in our public schools that are homeless and have mental health problems at some point in the year? Nobody's talking about that. Why am I the only one? So Eric Adams had a really good idea, and I always give credit to politicians when it's usually not their idea, it's someone else's, but it may have been his idea for all I know. But it was to provide free mental health care for kids. The problem is it's only available to kids that are 13 to 17, and they're only allowed one televisit a month. And that's crazy. For someone that's in mental health crisis, they need more support than that. I mean, that's nuts. So we have to expand that kind of a program, but we can also do it in conjunction with greater investments in our community centers. And I don't just mean community centers in NYCHA communities, I mean community centers in all disadvantaged communities where kids have a place to go, where they can partner with a mentor, get mental health referrals, be able to see therapists. There are a lot of therapists in New York City that should be doing pro bono therapy, as well as paying, charging rich people a lot of money for their services. So we really have to become a culture of giving, and as mayor, I'm really gonna promote that because as a lawyer, I've spent thousands and thousands of hours on pro bono cases that I didn't have to do because of how I grew up. I wanted to give back, and I want to make sure that everyone that we need gives to our kids because they're the future. Thanks, Jada.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a question from audience.
Good evening, Mr. Walden again.
Hi, Jim, please.
You advocate for public-private partnerships to accelerate affordable housing development. How will you ensure that these partnerships prioritize community needs over development profits?
I love that question. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Sharice.
Sharice, thank you very much for that question. Oh man, I could go on about this for about an hour and a half, because that housing plan that is on my website, jim4nyc.com, it's 100 pages long. I wrote it myself, right? Because I don't have time to go through my whole career, but having started from nothing, I love learning things. It just gets me so excited. And so one of the things that I hate is false choices. So I spend time in NYCHA communities. I was just at the Pink Houses, and someone said to me, I don't understand why there's all these beautiful buildings around and we can't get anything here. And I was like, yeah, of course you can't, because the politicians are telling you, hate developers, hate the private industry, they're all a bunch of jackals. It's not really true. I've been poor, so I got foisted into boardrooms at Goldman Sachs. Like, I know that they're not all devils. Some of them want to make a lot of money, but whatever, that's not a bad thing. So the private-public partnerships is an awesome idea that Mayor Bloomberg started, and he did it a lot. But it really holds the private sector accountable through contracts, right? So you have very clear ideas about what the developers have to deliver. So in my housing plan, you're going to read that we're going to rebuild 7% of NYCHA communities a year by giving NYCHA residents new apartments in new buildings that are 10% larger than the apartments they're living in now. They have learning centers so that their kids can do homework safely connected to a DOE system. And it's going to be a real game changer in terms of their perspective, because some of them are going to qualify for a rent-to-own program. So you can get that done if you are a taskmaster with the developers. You give them a lot to help their bottom line, but you hold them accountable, and that's how I'm going to create the Kids in Poverty program. So under this program, it was actually, I like to respect the rules. Kids in Poverty program is basically going to be a program that the developers are going to fund, that every single kid born in poverty, by the time they're an adult, they get $100,000, which is enough for like 6 years of rent or 3 years of mortgage payment or a payment for their education. And it's a real program that we're going to start. Sorry.
So, no, we're just going to end. I'm going to take some time out of the final time, but you have the last word. Your final thoughts.
I am the most improbable person you were ever going to meet. If you met me when I was 10 years old and you say that I would be a successful attorney in New York, I had Idris Elba play me in a movie, literally. It's ridiculous. I came from literally nothing, and I came to New York with a dream. And my dream was to have a career where I could raise a family that was safe, that didn't go through what I went through as a kid, and that I could give back. And at 59 years old, that's how old I am. I know some of you thought I was only 30, but at 59 years old, I decided to do this because I am sick and tired of seeing people get screwed. And I think I can say this in a house of God. I'm tired of it. I've seen it for years, and I've represented almost all of them. At some point in time, these politicians, they either wanted me to represent them in some cause, or I had to defend them, and I see them in public, I see them in private, and I see what we're really getting in terms of quality candidates. I want one job in politics, and that's it. That is to be mayor of the city of New York for 8 years and get us back on track, and to have people dream for more than just clean streets, but a whole generation of people that aspire to prosperity. Not just comfort, but prosperity. And we can do that. There's $1 trillion of value that goes through New York every single year, and we're going to tap into that, and we're going to change lives. So Jim Walden, please don't forget my name.
Thank you so much. And thanks very much. Thank you very much. And again, for all the folks that are just coming in, welcome. Please take a seat, and thank you for joining us today. I think we all saw that Mayor Eric Adams is with us, so why don't we bring him out? Mayor Adams? How are you? Good evening. Just the rules for the road. You have 2 minutes to answer each question. I will ask 3 as the moderator, and then we'll have a youth question, and perhaps a question from the audience, if you don't mind. First question concerns cost of living. How will you address the rising cost of living in New York City, especially housing, transportation, and food prices?
First of all, it's good to see everyone. Good evening to you
Good
all. And when you do an analysis of how do we deal with cost of living, there's certain things that government can do and certain things that's beyond our span of control. And so what we did in this administration with our amazing team, we put $30 billion back into the pockets of working class New Yorkers. And we did it in creative ways. One, we were able to, thanks DJ, we were able to decrease the cost of childcare from $220 a week to less than $20 a week. We increased the number of people who could be part of our reduced fare Metro card. We're paying off medical debt, the number one cause of bankruptcy in this city. We're paying billions of dollars in medical debt. We are paying the college tuition of children in foster care and paying them a stipend and giving them a life coach until they're 21 years old. We are also paying free high-speed broadband for NYCHA residents. So I can't put bread back, I can't reduce the cost of bread, but I can put bread back in your pockets. And that's what we've been doing. Just really being creative to ensure that we can use government resources to put money back in the pockets of working class people.
Okay. Thank you. Our second question is concerning gun violence. What specific policies will you implement to reduce gun violence, especially among our youth?
Well, yesterday I was up, 2 days ago I was up in the Bronx. 14-year-old child shot a 16-year-old girl. My battle is not only with what's happening on the street, my battle is with the lawmakers who are passing laws that they're not realistic in how they impact people every day, particularly around recidivism. We removed 21,500 guns off the streets of the city of New York, 1,400 ghost guns. Our babies are sitting inside their rooms using 3D printers making guns. And what we have done with some of our legislation, during the 70s and during the 60s and 70s, we allowed drug dealers to give drugs to our children to carry them because the laws were too lax. We did it, we're doing it now. And you're seeing a countless number of young people who are now victims of crimes and participating in crimes. Babies are killing babies. And the best way to reduce it is going upstream with our mindset. 30 to 40% of the people who are in Rikers Island are dyslexic, like I am. So we're doing dyslexia screening in our schools. We have a real, my community affairs, Commissioner Stewart, are teaching our young people golf. They're teaching them real estate license, teaching them how to fly. We are going proactively to keep a gun out of the hands of our children, and we have been successful in doing so.
My final question before I ask our youth to ask a question is respecting youth programs. How will you invest in youth programs to reduce long-term crime rates?
What we did, everyone was advocating for years to increase the number of summer youth employments. I can still remember that $50 check I got that allowed me to go to Delancey Street and buy my school clothing. So what did we do? We increased for the first time in its history 100,000 summer youth jobs. But we also went after justice-involved young people, NYCHA, foster care, other young people who are on the peripherals of getting involved in some type of illegal behavior. And we're doing paid internship programs. We partnered with CRED. CRED was just as involved, teaching our young people plumber, carpentry, electrician, HVAC. We find the best way to do it is to go out and ensure that our young people are involved in real employment. We got Fortune 500 companies to pay their full year-round tuition, not only summer youth employment. And the most important thing we can do, many of you in this room know, is internship. It's something that's often underutilized in Black and brown communities. We have our young people very much engaged in summer youth in our internship programs. And the numbers are impressive, and the number of young people that's getting engaged in employment.
Mayor Adams, my question for you today is, how will you fund and expand non-police violence intervention programs and community-based safety initiatives?
I'm sorry. First of all, what's your name?
My name is Nasai Anderson.
Nice to meet you. I didn't hear your question. Say it one more time.
My question was, how would you fund and expand non-police violence intervention programs and community-based safety initiatives?
We put more money in our crisis management team to do just that. And one way you have to do it is have a police department that builds a real symbiotic relationship with young people. You know, I was arrested at 15 and beat by police officers. That's why I joined the police department in the first place, is because we saw that that relationship was caustic and it was not appropriate. And so under this administration, as I indicated, my deputy Commissioner Mark Stewart, who was a former detective in the police department, he's creating real initiatives from teaching young people, again, how to fly a plane, how to play golf, how to get your real estate license, all of those appropriate things. That is how you build that relationship. And then the number one thing we can do is what Reverend Herbert Daughtry told me to do, join the police department. The Divine Nine should be recruiting young people to go into the police department. Our Masonic temples, if we don't want police to come into our community and act like occupying armies, then we need to become the army. This is a good paying 20-year retirement. You switch the cards on me. You have them now. You know, a 20-year retirement. It allowed me to buy my house. It allowed me to travel all over the globe. Our young people should go into law enforcement, and that is the way to get to the police department we want. The police officers should look like the people we want, and that diversity is increasing. All other ethnic groups are increasing in numbers, and black men need to be involved in law enforcement.
Sir, we have one more question from the audience.
Good evening, Mayor Adams.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
Here's a question from a community. What is the status of 2201 Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard as a low-income permanent housing for residents? As of today, we have seen beds once again brought into the building as if it will be a homeless shelter.
First of all, you're going to give me some more information. You're throwing all those numbers at me. Is this the location that was going to be a homeless shelter?
That's the address, 2201 Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard.
If this is the location, is that the, yeah. Like we said, we committed to make it a permanent housing, and we're going to do just that. We have a real housing crisis in the city, 1.4% vacancy rate. And everywhere we want to build housing, people stand up and protest against building the housing. That's what the city of Yes was about. We had 59 community boards. Out of the 59 community boards, 10 built more housing than the other 49 combined. Places like Harlem, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Crown Heights, they have been carrying the weight of affordable housing. In year one and year two, we built more affordable housing in the history of individual years in the city. Moved more people out of homelessness into permanent housing in the history of year one and year two in the city. More people use FEPS vouchers under this administration in the history of the program. We promised that that was going to be an affordable housing site, and if I make a promise, I'm going to keep that promise.
Thank you. Final thoughts, Mr. Mayor.
Final thoughts. You know, somebody stopped me the other day and they told me, you know, I'm disappointed in you, Eric. You have been, you know, the federal government went after you, and federal governments don't go after innocent people. And I told them, tell that to Malcolm. Tell that to Black Panthers. Tell that to Dr. King. Tell that to Brian Benjamin, the second highest black in the state. Tell that to them. There's a history of going after black people in general, specifically black men. I stood firm. When I got arrested as a boy, I went and became a police officer. I turned the city around. In less than 2 years, I turned this city around. They didn't think I could do it. This bald-headed, earring wearing mayor. I got bond ratings increase, more housing, decreased crime. This quarter was the least number of shooters in the city's history. Black unemployment dropped by 20%. $18 billion in MWBEs, our community. People were mad as hell that I became mayor, and they spent every day. One woman told me that, hey, you haven't fixed potholes, you haven't fixed crime, you haven't fixed this and that. That was January 2nd, 2022. I just was mayor for 3 days. Come on, folks, I did it. Who we kidding? And everyone that's running, the only reason they're running is because they thought I was going to be off the playing field. But God had a mission for me that started when I got beat by police, and I'm living out that mission. And I got work to finish and work to continue. And Divine Nine, all of you know me. You know what I have stood for, and you know what I stand for. And we can continue to do the work. But no matter what happened, 110 mayors, my picture's going up in City Hall. I'm 110. I'm looking to be 111.
Thank you. Okay, we have next Zelnor Mary. Good to see you. Just some rules. I will ask 3 questions. You have 2 minutes to answer each. We have our timekeepers here keeping everybody on track. You'll get a question from the youth and potentially one from the audience, and it will give you an opportunity to give some final thoughts within the time frame. Okay, so my first question is regarding cost of living. How will you address the rising cost of living in New York City, especially transportation, housing, and food?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I want to make sure we're still awake out here. I want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm State Senator Zelnor Mary, running to be the next mayor. I'm born and raised in this city. Born and raised. My wife and I went to the same elementary school in Crown Heights, and we want to put down roots in that very neighborhood, but the average cost of a home is $1 million. Feels out of reach. The median cost of rent is $4,000 across the city. I grew up in a rent-stabilized apartment. That's how my story was possible. And so as the next mayor, I, of course, want to ensure that we are protecting our rent-stabilized portfolio. We got to have a strong right to counsel program, fully resourced. You can have a lawyer when you're facing eviction, but we got to build more housing, and we got to build it everywhere. It's not just for certain communities. We all have to shoulder that burden so that we can bring the cost of living down for everybody. I think it's really important to strike at the heart of our affordability crisis. So not only do I want to build more housing to bring down the cost of living, I want free, high-quality after-school for everybody. My mom, like most New Yorkers, didn't get off at 2:30 p.m. She had me in something called the Crown Heights Youth Collective. And that's where I stayed off the streets, and that's where I was learning karate and was terrible, but I was the only boy on the step team, shout out to the D9, and getting busy. Every family should have that opportunity. That is gonna help with childcare costs. I wanna get that done as the next mayor.
Thank you. So the second question is regarding gun violence. What specific policies will you implement to reduce gun violence, particularly among youth?
This has been one of my #1 priorities as a state senator. I've served in the state legislature for over 7 years, and my focus really from the time I have entered that chamber has been to reduce gun violence. Not because it is a topic that gets a lot of attention, it is because this is what I have lived. I grew up in central Brooklyn where I knew there were 2 possibilities. I could either be a victim of gun violence, or there was an opportunity that I might be subject to police brutality. And we have a community that has to deal with both of those realities. And so I haven't just talked about it, I have been about it. I wrote the law that said gun violence is a public health crisis, so treat it as such. Required the state and the federal government to draw down money to give to our organizations on the ground. I wrote a first-in-the-nation law that held bad actors in the gun industry accountable. We don't manufacture guns in this city, but they make their way to our communities. Somebody has to be held accountable. They said I couldn't do it. I got it done. We were the first state in the nation to do it. Now 8 other states across the country have the same law on the books. I passed something that would allow for our community organizations to get the resources that they need, and I just established, just last week in the state budget, the Office of Gun Violence Prevention on the state level so that we can have it in our statutes to have the resources. Here's what I want to do as the next mayor. Clear 100. The clearance rates, the rate at which we solve our shootings, it's lower than the national average. In fact, 60% of shootings in the city go unsolved. And in communities that look like ours, that number is much higher. I want to solve every single shooting. And people look at me and say, every single shooting, Z? Yes, every single shooting. Why should we accept gun violence in our communities? I want a detective unit that is solely focused on solving it. They have done it in other jurisdictions, and we've seen shootings go down. I want to do that as the next mayor, but also give our young people the things that they want. Summer youth employment, I want 50,000 more slots so that it's universal and available to everybody.
Thank you. So for my last question, with respect to youth programs, how will you invest in youth programs to reduce long-term crime rates?
So I just, on the end of the last question, right now we have about 100,000 summer youth employment slots. I want to increase that by 50,000 so that we have no young people on our waiting list. But we also have to consider that, we have young people that want to be entrepreneurs. They want to get into industries that are not available to them that don't partner with our summer youth employment program. So I want to do something that increases that pipeline in industries that we know need the help right now, like the green economy, like the care economy, and also when we're pairing people with our summer youth employment, I want more people from the private sector to get in on that. My mom had a jewelry shop on Flatbush Avenue that she had to close down because she didn't have access to capital and those resources. We got a lot of young people that want to start a business. Let's invest in them. Let's have a business accelerator program for our young people, get them involved in the industries that are growing really fast, like our tech industry, and let's actually be about it and give them the resources.
Senator, my question for you is, what programs are in place to prepare our youth for future-focused jobs?
Okay, I swear I did not have these questions beforehand. I feel like I'm answering the last with what's coming next. So I think we have a real opportunity with our tech industry. That if it is the fastest growing industry in this city, that our young people have to be a part of that, and particularly our young black and brown people have to be a part of that growth as well. We can't just have it be that if you have a connection that you can make it into the tech industry. We got to go into our schools early on. There's some pilot programs currently in existence in the city that works with a small cohort of high school students and gives them internships and allow for them to do that. I want to drastically expand that. If you want to do business here in the city, you got to be homegrown. Let's get some of our young people taking advantage of those opportunities that are before them. So I want more summer youth. I want close working with our tech industries. But I also think After School for All is going to provide these opportunities as well. I mentioned the things that I was doing in after school, but there are also some opportunities for people to get on different career tracks in after school programming. We know that between the hours of 3 and 6 p.m., that this is when our young people are getting involved in things we don't want them to get involved in. Let's give them something good. Not just telling them what not to do, giving them opportunities to do something. And we can get that if we have after school available to everybody.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Myrie.
Good evening.
Our community question is, how do you plan to balance economic development with protecting the character and affordability of our diverse neighborhoods, especially for long-time residents and small businesses?
Thank you for the question. Part of what I want to do as the next mayor, I released a Black agenda. I did this a couple of weeks ago. And part of that Black agenda included some of the work we want to do with our small businesses. I want, as I mentioned, a Black business accelerator fund that would provide resources at no interest, but also technical assistance and training. Part of the reason that my mom had to close down her shop was that she didn't know how to navigate the bureaucracy. She didn't know how to navigate all of the systems in place to help her do well. I want to provide that sort of resource, bring City Hall to the people, and allow for that economic development to happen. The sad truth is that we have chosen as a government and as leadership who is worthy of investment and who is not worthy in investment. And what happens then is that we have pockets of divestment, places that have never had an influx of resources. And we see often in those places that people are undergoing higher rates of crime, higher rates of poverty, and we throw our hands up and say, well, how are we supposed to deal with this? Well, we got to put up the resources to help people. That is how I think we're going to balance it out. When we talk about development in this city, it can't just be that some pockets of the city are susceptible to overdevelopment while others have no development at all. I have stood up for this in my own Senate district, where I grew up, on one side of the park where there have been thousands of units of development, and on the other side of the park there have been no units of development. And when I have supported the units of development on that other side of the park, people come to me and say, Z, well, you can't step foot here if you support this. And I say, first of all, I'm from New York City, I'm gonna step wherever I want. But second, we all have to share this burden. We all have to be in it. And when we do that, it makes life easier and equitable for everybody.
All right. Sir, we have time for some final thoughts from you.
I just want to say again, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you to all of you for taking some time on this Thursday evening to talk about the future of this city. I would not be who I am today if I did not have people that fought for me. And people have said, look, Z, you're doing a lot of good work. You've done some good stuff in the state Senate. You got an extensive legislative record. You look like a nice young man. You got a beautiful wife. Why on earth would you want to run for mayor of the city of New York? Because we have to fight in this moment. If we do not fight for our young people, if we do not fight for our families, if we do not fight for our communities, the city is going to be something we do not recognize. So I'm standing up, and I'm going to fight in this moment. And I plan to win. So I'll see y'all June 14th when early voting begins.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, folks, we have two more candidates left, Whitney Tilson and Dr. Selma Bartholomew, but I want to do a little gut check. Is everybody okay? Was one more time, is everybody okay? Give me a round of applause to thank all of these candidates for coming through. Oh, come on, you could do better than that. One more time. Thank you so much. Let's hear from Whitney Tilson. Good evening. So I will ask 3 questions. You have 2 minutes to answer each of those 3 questions. We'll hear from our youth, who will then ask 1 question, and we may have an audience question as well. So again, thank you for being with us. And my first question is with regard to, you think I'd memorized this by now, right? The cost of living. How will you address the rising cost of living in New York City, especially transportation, housing, and food?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of that is housing. We have a housing crisis in this city that is well known. We have a 1.4% vacancy rate. Rents across the country have fallen for 24 consecutive months. In our city, where they're already the highest, they're still going up. It is simple supply and demand. I am a business person. I am a first-time political candidate, by the way. My background is in business. I've built half a dozen small businesses in this city. And when you make it almost impossible to build new housing or even to maintain your existing housing stock, the inevitable supply-demand equation is going to jack rents through the roof. And it is forcing working-class New Yorkers out of the city. We need to build on City of Yes, which I will give Mayor Adams credit for passing, though by the time it got watered down, it's maybe 20% of what we need. Zoning restrictions are the first obstacle. We have a regulatory morass, and we just make it very, very hard to build new housing. I might differ from some of the other candidates in that I believe the solution, the funding that we need with the amount of housing we're talking about, at least 500,000 new units, that amount of money can only come from the private sector, which means we have to make it profitable to build housing and operate housing in New York. And we seem to forget that. And when I can tell you the private sector people, real estate developers should not be a pejorative word. These are people who, in many cases, for multiple generations, have been building housing in New York, and we have driven them away. And the most common comment I hear is they treat us like the enemy. We need to stop treating people who want to invest in this city and build here like the enemy. We need to roll out the welcome mat, because frankly, they're telling me they're going to Newark, they're going to Jersey City, they're going to Arlington, Virginia. It is a competitive marketplace out there.
Thank you. Our second question is related to gun violence. What specific policies will you implement to reduce gun violence, especially among our youth?
Yes, the NYPD's program to partner with communities, I applaud. It has been, the funding has gone up to about $100 million, but that is really only a drop in the bucket. It only covers 29 of our 77 precincts, but we need, having the police cooperate more with local communities is the key. It does not help, of course, that we are at a 34-year low today in the number of police officers. We need at least 3,000 more in the next few years, 5,000 more eventually, so they are not understaffed. I believe actually that there is a link between the police enforcing more quality of life crimes, lower level crimes. If you stop enforcing those, which we effectively did for a number of years, starting about 5 years ago, it not only leads to a rise in low level crime, but a rise in serious crime. And so Jessica Tisch, the commissioner, since she came in November, I think has done an excellent job managing the police department better, developing quality of life initiative that's underway, and you can see it in the numbers. The murder rate in the city is down 28% this year through May 11th. Shootings are down 16%. And I believe that's a direct result of more effective policing, and I want to see more of that.
Thank you. My last question, before we turn it to our youth, is related to youth programs. How would you invest in youth programs to reduce long-term crime rates?
Well, the single most important youth program I would point to is our school system. Actually, that's where youth, and so I strongly support youth programs, after-school programs as well. But I have committed much of my adult life to addressing two big systemic inequalities in our country. The first is education. The second is related to business, entrepreneurship, access to capital. So I grew up in Tanzania and Nicaragua, the child of parents who met and married in the Peace Corps. First school I ever attended, I was the only white kid in Morogoro, Tanzania. But maybe that, inspired by that experience and my parents, my first job out of college was here in New York City, helping start Teach for America. I've been on the board of KIPP charter schools for more than 20 years. And through that, I have seen how the public education system is systemically underserves low-income and minority children in many different ways, and I've been committed to fighting that. My first job out of Harvard Business School 35 years ago was something called, founded and ran something called the Initiative for a Competitive Inner City. We worked with minority-owned and small businesses around New York and around the country. Actually, as I biked up here, I think I'm the only candidate who rode his bike here tonight. It's parked right outside. I biked past Sylvia's restaurant, and it brought back memories of my old friend Van Woods, son of Sylvia Woods of Sylvia's Restaurant, and he was one of the businesses that we worked with. We actually sent him up to Harvard Business School on a full scholarship to get an executive MBA. But consistently, minority-owned businesses, like minority students and children, were getting the short end of the stick from the system. And I helped found an investment fund that is going to this day that has raised and invested $1.7 billion in minority-owned businesses across the country.
Hello. My question for you today is, what programs are in place to prepare our youth for future-focused jobs?
When you say future-focused jobs, mean just generally jobs of the future?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just visited a charter school that is focused on preparing students for jobs that they have internships. And so, there are two big things. One is a sound education where children graduating from our school system are prepared to do any kind of job, are ready to learn. This statistic always horrifies me. 47% of fourth graders in New York City, and it's about 2/3 of African American fourth graders, are on the NAEP national test, are reading below basic. It means they are struggling readers by age 10. And I think it is a total disgrace that our school system has these children for 5 years at this point, and they can't read at even a basic level. But kids just get passed along. The school system lies to the children, lies to the parents that you're doing all right, and then they finish high school, and they think they're ready to do college level work, and then only then do they discover that they're not. So we need to dramatically shake up our system of public education, where we spend $40,000 a kid, and our children are reading at a lower level than children in Mississippi, and the poorest state in the country that's spending $12,000 a kid. We do not set high standards. We do not hold anyone accountable for failing to educate children properly, and I want to be the education mayor that completely changes that, and I can tell you it's low-income and minority kids who are the ones who are systematically getting the worst schools in this city.
Thank you, sir.
One question from the audience.
Good evening, Mr. Tilson. As an expanded version of what your statement just was, the question is, New York City students' test scores continue to reflect deep disparities across neighborhoods. What concrete steps will you take to improve academic outcomes in underperforming schools and ensure every student, regardless of zip code, receives a high quality of education?
Sure. Great question. Thank you for allowing me to elaborate on the most important topic and that I've committed my adult life to. So how is it that Mississippi is outperforming us, spending $12,000 and we're spending $40,000 a kid? They passed legislation a number of years ago putting extra tutors in schools to help kids who are struggling readers at an early age. It requires schools to tell parents exactly, you have to test the kids, see if they can read and do math and the basics, and it requires the schools to tell the parents. They did not mess around with loosey-goosey methods of teaching reading. It's research-proven systems rooted in phonics. And here's the most controversial part of it that I believe is necessary, which is if a kid can't read at the end of 3rd grade, they don't get promoted to 4th grade. They ended social promotion. And boy, does that ruffle a lot of feathers. The children, the parents, but it holds the school system accountable. I think instead of 47% of children of 4th graders in New York City who are reading well below grade level at the lowest level, I think that number should be 0. How do you get to 0? By simply, you don't get promoted. There's no social promotion to 4th grade until the school system has done its job and educated a child up to a basic level. Because keep in mind, if you can't, the curriculum shifts in about 4th grade from learning to read to reading to learn. So if a child cannot read at that point, it's game over, basically. So that's probably the most controversial element of my education reform platform. If I do have a couple more seconds, the one other thing I will say is, having been on the board of KIPP charter schools for 20 plus years, every 5 years, our authorizer evaluates us rigorously, and if we cannot demonstrate for each one of our 18 schools every 5 years that we are delivering for kids, they can put us on probation or shut us down. There is real accountability for the 15% of children in New York City who are educated at charter schools. My question is why isn't there similar accountability for the other 85%?
Thank you, sir. You have 2 minutes to give us a final word.
Okay. Big picture, why is someone who's not a career politician, why did I throw my hat in the ring? I've been in this city, I married a New Yorker, been in this city for 31 years, grown to love this city. I'm worried it's headed in the wrong direction. And when I looked at the field and when I looked at the direction the city is heading in, which I do not like and want to turn it around, I don't think career politicians are doing a very good job running this system. I'm a business person. I know bad management when I see it. I think I can manage this city an awful lot better. Keep in mind, it is not The problems we have are not due to a shortage of money. In every area, we spend more than anybody else. We're the wealthiest city in the world by far. We have the highest tax rates, so we have an enormous $115 billion city budget. The problem is we don't really have a democracy here. I think there's a systemic problem where it's an off-year, low turnout, closed primary. So 5% of New Yorkers, basically, it requires the vote, about 400,000 votes to become mayor in this city by winning the Democratic primary. So you have politicians who, I've been on stage with many of them, and I think they are well-intentioned, but when your livelihood is a function of being elected by a small number of special interest groups, that's who you're going to serve. And so I think we need a mayor who will not be beholden to anyone, and I think I can be that person. So just a little bit in just closing remarks, just personally, you've heard some of this about growing up in Tanzania and Nicaragua, and fighting to address many of the systemic inequalities in our system. I'll also just mention I've raised my 3 daughters here in the city. They are now in their 20s, have come back and are building their lives here. And so my story here has been a happy one in New York City. I'm running for mayor because I'm worried that that is not the case for far too many New Yorkers. I want to make this city safer, more affordable, more prosperous for every New Yorker. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And our final candidate this evening, Dr. Selma Bartholomew. Good evening. I know you've been listening in, but just to go over the ground rules finally, I will ask 3 questions. You have 2 minutes to answer each of them. We'll have 1 question from our youth, potentially 1 from the audience, and then we'll give you an opportunity to make some closing remarks. So the first question, gosh, I still haven't memorized this. 1, with respect to living wages, the living wage, or being able to, the cost of living in New York City. How will you address the rising cost of living in New York City, especially transportation, housing, and food prices?
First, let me say good evening. And to my young people, who you are now is not who you shall be. I am Dr. Selma Bartholomew. I grew up on Sugar Hill. At 15, the parents in Harlem used to run up the hill on 141st Street to bring me their children because I had a business. I was tutoring kids in the neighborhood. They knew that they had to be there by 4 o'clock because I would get an empty classroom and I would be able to teach kids in Harlem. I am an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. And I'm in the education space. I actually started my business in 2008 in the middle of the recession. I'm going to ask anybody if they have a penny sooner or later to pass it up to me. When I started my business, I discovered the ugly truth about New York City, which is that if you are black, if you are a woman, if you're Hispanic, that you will never make any money. And so therefore, I flew to North Dakota. What I want to do for New York City, I don't want to talk about jobs and you being a worker. I want to make you a business. And so I want to drop some ecosystems across the city, and I want to take you, the young person, and I want to put you in that room with a venture capitalist, with other businesses like myself, and I want to coach you. And guess what? When the venture capitalist gives you $1 million, I want to match it. I just made you a millionaire. How do I know this works? Because it turns out in New York State, for the past several years, this model has been done outside of our communities. We're not poor, we've had poor leadership. And so in New York State, businesses have been getting matching venture capital funds. That money has not touched us in Harlem, in the Bronx, or in any other community. And so I want to build businesses. You will not be able to move forward if you do not have an economic engine to be able to build yourself up from workers. No more workers. You need to be able to build businesses. And finally, I asked somebody for a penny. I see the note. Whoever has a penny, pass it up for me, please.
In that time, we'll move to the second question.
Yeah.
With respect to gun violence, what specific policies will you implement to reduce gun violence, especially among youth?
I've done work. First of all, I want to say hello to one of my principals in the room in East New York Middle School. We went into East New York and really transformed his school and his community around violence. The first thing that I would like to do around gun violence is education, redirection, accountability. I want to be able to say to you that in our communities, we have a lot of empty spaces, event spaces, that sit empty during the week. I want to take those spaces and I want to turn them into much more art spaces where our young people can go and they can do art and they can do their graphic arts and they can really find joy again in our community. I know that you want to be able to find those places in terms of the community centers, right? We have no more spaces in our community where our kids get a chance to actually connect with other members of the community. So that's one of the first things. The other thing also is you don't have work. You don't have jobs. Your children are struggling also from the weed. We cannot address the gun violence in our community if we do not address the fact that the weed is being pushed on our community, and it is what is fueling the missing girls. It is what is fueling the increase in STDs. It is what is fueling the drug driving. It is what is fueling this violence in our community. And so we have to do the redirection in a different way. So I want to give you art. I want to revamp high schools. Your high schools are broken. They don't need to come to school at 8 o'clock. I've made a commitment to teach 1.5 million children how to swim. How to swim. They don't need to be in there at 8 o'clock. They can swim at 10 p.m. So really rethinking the models that you have. No more programs and no more projects. Projects, people who rely on just enough cash to survive. End that mentality. Let us build businesses and let us connect our young people to the individuals within our community. So art, music, STEM, our kids don't even know the difference anymore between a sax and a trombone. Let's bring the art back into our community with event spaces, and let's build some business hubs in a different way.
Thank you. My last question before I turn it over to the youth is about youth. How will you invest in youth programs to reduce long-term crime rates?
Who's got a penny? Nobody got a penny? A penny. A penny. Yeah. I know you've seen a lot of leaders here tonight, right? I'm not the traditional politician. For every dollar we spend in New York City, $116 billion, you, because you're a man of color, they give you less than half of a penny in terms of businesses. Less than half of a penny if you're black, less than half of a penny if you're Hispanic, less than half of a penny if you're a woman. And so at the end of the day, we're not poor. We've had poor leadership and we're poorly organized. And at the state level, I will not even touch the numbers for you. So in order to really impact you, I've got to build you up and build you up an economy around you, a thriving economy. So what, you make $30 an hour and you can't afford the rent? You need to be able to have a mindset that says, I could be a millionaire and I can make you a billionaire right now. There's 1 billion people in China. How about we sell something to the people in China instead of them constantly selling to us? We need to shift the mindset of our young people, and we need to shift the mindset of our community. End this work. We need businesses. I own a business in New York City. I'm struggling. Why? Because they're giving us half of a penny. Do you understand what that means? $116 billion, and black women make less than 1%? Black men less than 1% under all of our leadership. So I'm not in the Democratic clubs. I am on the Democratic ticket, and I'm here to say to you, let's go win our kids back with jobs, with art, with music, and with a real plan in terms of an economy.
What programs are in place to prepare our youth for future-focused jobs? What programs are in place to prepare our youth for future-focused jobs?
Well, first of all, the future-focused jobs are about STEM. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. In this country from 1978 to currently, mathematics performance for black and brown children, in 1978, middle schoolers were 13%. Today, you've only gone 14%. You've only gained 1 percentage point. So I've done some of the most transformational work in mathematics in this country and in this city. And so what I do that is really groundbreaking is I talk about mathematics as a language. You are natural linguists. I've been all around the world. You go to Africa, kids speak 6, 7 languages. So their entire approach of teaching mathematics is only teaching to one part of the brain. So let me give you the mathematics. And so in New York City schools, when I tell them, let me teach them something that they don't know about the mathematics, they look at me and they act like if there's only 3 hidden figures in the world, let me elevate you math-wise. And this idea of vocational jobs, let it go. Let it go. The plumbers of the future, no math, no science, and no technology. I have a son. I'm honored to say that. That's why I love you. I have a son. He was just named the Rising Black Scientist of the Year. His research is in Parkinson. He bought himself a computer, and the computer has 5 wheels, and he drives it around that Cornell campus. The world has changed. If you don't know the math, you will never get the jobs of the future. Let me help you. Let me help you. I've done the work in North Dakota. I put a plane in North Dakota, a plane. Imagine a block radius where you have an 18-wheeler, a Boeing 747, and their kids are doing the jobs of the future. No, acting like if you should get $30 for summer work. No, you gotta have a bigger vision. And the vision has to be about businesses and about really changing what your students imagine that work can be. Guess how much money North Dakota got from Biden? $100 million. How much did they get you in Harlem? You got nothing. Nothing while our kids are running the street and smoking weed. I'm over it, New York. Let's go get our kids. Let's win them back with art, with music, and with the jobs of the future. Let go that low-level thinking. No more low-level thinking jobs. Let's build businesses.
Thank you. Do we have one question from the audience?
Good evening, Dr. Selma B.
Good evening.
This question is from a community member. How do you handle conflict within the community when trying to navigate opposing issues?
Oh, wow, that's a good one. So one of my plans is around networks of care. And I want to go about building block leaders, block by block. I know that there are people who are already leading in their tenants associations, but what training did they receive? So I want to identify those leaders. I want to bring them in the room with the youth, train them. I also want to bring them in the room with the police department. We can't have this constant broken relationship. So I want to build a stewardship model with the community leader, the youth, and the police officer, and other community agencies, and let them come together. And what I want to give them, leadership training, conflict resolution training, and how to manage a meeting. The meetings in New York City all sound the same, but the actors change. The other thing that I'd like to do in terms of conflict is I want to attack and struggle and really come together around domestic violence. Domestic violence in our city right now. I want to do something that's not been done. We know that the police is there, right? I want to identify a domestic violence. It could be a police officer, but more importantly, a trauma-informed person who will always respond to a DV case. I want them in a different color. And the reason why I want them to wear a different color is because when the police officers bring out somebody who has perpetuated violence, we have been, right, there's no trust. So we think, oh my God, are you hurting that person, right? So if we see somebody wearing something different, then we will know, wow, that's a DV case. And so that kind of quells the anger. The reason why you need that person as well is because it's the family who is also the victim. So how is that person there for the family? If you're a domestic violence victim, it turns out that if that's your mom, she can't go into that apartment. But if we had a liaison with the police officers to address these issues, then we begin to really build trust and build networks of care. So I'm looking at it in a different way. I'm looking at relationships, and I'm looking at what's not working, and really building solutions around community and what I call networks of care, networks of care.
Thank you very much. We'll give you the final word.
I didn't step into this role lightly. I did not. My brother said mention my website, drselmab.com. I'm the only candidate with the least amount of money. I got here on the strength of God. How do you get a miracle from him? How do ordinary people do extraordinary things? How do I know that I will be the first woman mayor in New York City? I'm a woman of faith. Use your faith on him. I use my faith on him. You like my sneakers, Harlem? You like my gold shoes? 4 years ago, because as I said, I'm a black-owned business. We are struggling out here. We are struggling. COVID hit me. Cancer hit me. I couldn't walk. I could not walk. I found myself on the floor. I said, dear God, they are trying to kill me for helping your children, for trying to educate your children in New York City. They are trying to kill me. Look at me now. Look at me now. I'm about to become the first woman mayor in New York City. I'm not. I didn't step into this role lightly. I stepped into it for my young people. We should be outraged that when 5-year-olds go to school, that they are stinking of weed. We should be outraged. We should be outraged. When have we ever allowed the victimization of our children for the money? For the money. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. You have decided to render your children unto Caesar. They are mine. I did not step into this race lightly. I came for you. I came for you. And I'm fed up of people killing my kids, killing our children, and telling us that we should be okay with it. Go and walk Harlem. You see our men smoking weed, sharing weed. So I did not step into this race lightly. The mayor's race is mine because I bring a bigger purpose and I bring a bigger why. Let us go and take care of our children. You will not cross over any place to milk and honey when your children are dying and we turn a blind eye and think that it's okay. So I am Dr. Selma Bartholomew. Selma Bartholomew.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a great way to end the evening, isn't it? All right, talking about our youth. On behalf of the D9 and for 100 Black Men, I know you want to say, but I will just take this moment to say thank you very much for allowing me to moderate this evening. I appreciate that. Shout out to my 1906 brothers, all right? Before you do that, I do want to make sure that I give any words that the young people have. They can say a few words. Stand up.
Oh, okay. I'm glad to have the opportunity to be up here, being able to interview some of the potential mayoral candidates of New York City. I think this was a great learning lesson for me, especially for someone who wants to minor in government in college. Yeah, this was a really great opportunity. I'm just proud of myself for being up here, being able to do these things, having the support of all of y'all to ask your questions as well, because these are really important issues that are going on in New York City, and we really need to think about this. All the people that did come up here, we have to take time from now until when the elections do start to really understand who will be the best person to lead us forward into the future, not only for y'all, but for the youth as well. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity.
It's all right. Did a great job. Did a great job.
I just want to say that this is one of the birthplaces for all of our D9 steering committee. We really wanted the youth voice to be involved. And these two young people, they actually submitted their questions to us. And we said, these are awesome questions. And they're going to be here this evening. So thank you so much. Oh, and their parents are here as well. So thank you, parents.
Thank you, parents. So on that note, a lot of things have been said, but for the most part, I want to thank you all for coming out and supporting us too as well. This is the first of many, especially for this D9 coalition, because we know that voter education is something that is imperative to our communities from that standpoint. So with that being said, thank you all for coming out. And I also want to thank our sponsors too as well, which is 100 Black Men, even though I know our speaker just mentioned it, for joining with us. And all of the Divine Nine groups and organizations that have joined on with us. Everyone that was a part of the steering committee and the volunteers, if you guys can please come up to the front. Please, please, because this was not a one-person show. It took a village from that standpoint. So yes. Can't forget Mother A.M.E. Zion for opening their doors to us and allowing us to have this forum. As well as Nicole Yearwood for giving the presentation on ranked choice voting. All right. So we will just want to get the steering committee first, and then all of our volunteers. All right, here you go.
Look this way.
I'm gonna sit.
We're going to do the Divine Nine.
Come on, 52.
Let's try to move more towards the middle, just so that this way we could take it down the aisle. Please.